Wednesday, April 12th. We're coming to you tonight from the Callahan Elementary School. I'm going to ask everyone in the room to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes in our packets tonight. Our business meeting minutes from March 29th, our executive session minutes from March 29th, and our executive session minutes from April 6th. Does anyone have any questions on the minutes this evening?
Motion to approve?
So moved. And seconded by Joe. All those in favor? Aye. 3-0. So tonight we are coming to you from the Callahan Elementary School, and with us we have the principal of the Callahan Elementary School, Dr. Scarlett Britton. Thank you for having us.
Hi, thank you for being here. I just want to do like a quick welcome to everyone, so like welcome to the Callahan. I wanted to be here to say hello because I feel like I haven't met all of you, but I definitely have seen you on TV. So I just wanted to say like I'm so glad to be here. I started on July 1st, and this is such a good experience. It feels like I've been here for years. I know Teresa, I talked to you about that. Like it just feels like home to me. So thank you everyone for making me feel welcome. In front of you, like we are trying something new at the Callahan. We are focusing on positive. So we created Callahan Care. So like in front of you there's a little notepad. So like these are our cares that we use, and that's what we follow. So hopefully it works. But the kids love it. We do like cares cards on Fridays, and we get the name from each letter, and then they get to pick like from the price box, and they are so happy about that. So we're trying to bring some positivities into the school. Does anybody have any questions for me?
No, just thank you for having us and
All right.
disrupting your normal school day with a lengthy school committee meeting.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. And there's some souvenirs on the tables for you, water and whatever that you need. Like the school's open to you. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Yeah, thanks, Scarlett.
All right, so moving on to the next item is the warrant report. I'll slide over here and grab my laptop because the warrant report is on that. I will not be able to read you what I signed this week without that. I'm going to get to move on. Hello, Dr. Johnson.
Can't see that.
You can drive if you would like, but it's a little smallish.
Okay.
All right, so I'm just doing the warrant report. So this week I signed warrants in the amounts of $1,881,134.09, $1,873,281.79, $149,635.93, $17,590.31, $17,424.04, $541,129.08, $18,815.01, $15,703.86, $67,943.39, $1,761.34, $34,543.34, $126,986.92, and $3,091.39 for a grand total of $4,749,040.49. Are there any questions on the warrant report this evening? Great. Okay, so moving on to our next agenda item is public comment. Just as a reminder to the public, you can access public comment in two ways. You can be in person at the meeting. You can also sign up in advance through signing, you can be in person at the meeting, signing up in advance through the superintendent's office by calling the superintendent's office by noon the day of the meeting. You can also come to the meeting and sign in at that time. You can also access public comment by a hybrid link, also by calling the superintendent's office by noon of the day of the meeting. And I don't think anyone here has signed up for public comment. Dr. Thompson, did anyone request a hybrid link this evening?
Not that I'm aware of.
Wonderful. So, seeing that there is no one here for public comment, I will declare public comment closed at 7:17 p.m. Okay, so moving on to appearances. We're going to take things a touch out of order from our agenda, and we're going to welcome Ms. Kaplan to talk to us about a foreign language out-of-state field trip.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me, Dr. Thompson and School Committee. I'm here tonight representing the World Language Department, and we are interested in a trip next year to the Dominican Republic for April of 2024. We are hoping to do a service trip. I myself have run 2 service trips to the DR before, and just had incredible, amazing experiences. The students just grew so much in such a short period of time. It's only 8 days, but the transformation that we see is so incredible. And we're really passionate about this style of trip because it's not just like getting off a bus and looking at a monument and smiling, but it's really being immersed in the culture and getting to really speak the language. We also, last year, got to go to Costa Rica, and I could not believe how much Spanish they were speaking by the end. We were doing tours where it was like completely in Spanish, and they really got it, and they were answering questions, and we even came back and my seniors took the seal of biliteracy test, and they were all scoring like so much better than ever before as a result of the experience they had. So we really feel like travel is an amazing opportunity and really fits with what we want for our students in terms of their growth, their development, and also, of course, it really aligns with our program and our goals of our program.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions about this field trip?
I might have missed it. It was referenced that the itinerary was attached, but I didn't see the itinerary. Is that still being developed?
It is. Let me see what page it is. So it starts on page 8 of the, like when you get into the EF travel proposal. So let's see. So on page 9, it kind of goes through the details. So we'll have the regional meals, we'll have the volunteer activities, we'll have our full-time director, and then it gives some sort of like a sample of a hotel that we could possibly stay at.
Oh, okay. It's just that very small, like your experience includes, but it wasn't like day by day what you were planning.
I can give you this here. This has more possibly. So it goes through so we would land in Santo Domingo and then we go to the coast for the coral reef activities. Would you like to see?
I was just, because our policy says we're supposed to see it, but I didn't see it in the packet.
Okay.
But if you have it and you can get it to Dr. Thompson, I think that is okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I always ask this question with field trips, but what is the plan for fundraising and helping students be able to go on this trip?
Yeah, so I think we have sort of like a two-tiered approach. There's things like we really want the student-driven type of fundraisers, of course, so things that they can do like restaurant nights, The town is amazing in that way of supporting, but we also are hoping to look into scholarship opportunities. Like Mrs. Holmes was successful in getting a scholarship through a business donation, so I already have a letter drafted. I'm like ready to pound the pavement if the fundraiser letter is approved, so that we'll have sort of like what the kids can do for fundraising and then what the adults can also do to really beef that up.
Okay.
Any other questions? Does anybody would like to make a motion to approve this field trip?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second? Second by Joan. All those in favor? Aye. So passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Tracy made a motion and I. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good luck with the fundraising. Okay. All right, so next on our agenda, we have Mr. Longley here to give us the athletic recognition for the winter season.
Okay, thank you for having me, and just here to speak a little bit about the winter season. We did celebrate our winter banquet a few weeks ago, sponsored by the Northern High Athletic Booster Club, and so hopefully people, a lot of students and parents were able to attend that, and Dr. Thompson was there as well. So we had a really successful winter season. The winter really has been really successful the last 3 or 4 years, and this year was no different. We had over 30 student athletes recognized by the Tri-Valley League with All-Star Honorable Mention Awards. We had more than 10 students compete in their individual state championship meets in wrestling, swim and dive, and track and field. Our 4 team sports, boys and girls ice hockey and boys and girls basketball, all qualified for the state tournament. And boys basketball won the Tri-Valley League for the 2nd year in a row. We had a pretty good run. Not only did all 4 teams qualify, but all 4 teams advanced to the Sweet 16 round of the tournament, with boys ice hockey advancing to the Elite 8 for the 2nd year in a row. So we had, which was pretty amazing. We played 10 tournament games in 10 days over the course of that time. So special thanks to all of the coaches and parents and student athletes for their efforts during that time, but also Dr. Galligan and the administration and my staff at the high school for getting out to all the games. We can't, sometimes there's, multiple games on the same days and things like that. So it's really all hands on deck to get out there and support the teams. Last but not least, the cheerleading team advanced to the state championship this winter, and that was the first time that they had advanced to the state championship since 2013. So congratulations to Jill Buckman and the cheerleaders. That event was held at Worcester State, which was really a nice event. So I'm just going to go ahead. We hand out 3 team individual awards per the Booster Club for each sport after each season at our banquet, and then there's also TVL recognition. So I'll just go ahead and mention those students at this time. So the NHS award winners for girls basketball: unsung hero Lauren Reen, defensive player of the year Alexa Corus, coaches award Trish Rakowski, boys basketball MVP Noah Badette, unsung hero Dylan Hamway, coaches award Maddie Mahoney. Cheerleading Coaches Award Rachel O'Neill, Caroline Curran, and most improved was Deja Newton. Gymnastics Most Improved Kate Broderick, unsung hero Paige McBrien, Coaches Award Maddie Carrero. Boys Ice Hockey Coaches Award Sean Dittmeyer, Most Improved Paul Sheehan, unsung hero Ryan Neishe. Girls Ice Hockey Coaches Award Jenna Nauman, Coaches Award Morgan Roach, and Coaches Award Michaela Reen. Boys Swim and Dive MVP Joe Green, Most Improved Anthony Kavanaugh, and Coaches Award Michael Flynn. Girls Swim and Dive, MVP Colleen Sisk, Unsung Hero Kaylee Brown, Rookie of the Year Anna Santana Alcantara. Girls Indoor Track and Field, MVP Christina Fontaine, Unsung Hero Catherine Cronin, Coaches Award Natalie Martin. Boys Indoor Track and Field, MVP Dylan O'Brien, Unsung Hero Jacob Zhang, Coaches Award Cameron LaPiccolo. Wrestling, MVP Nate Sue, Unsung Hero TJ Wyman, Most Improved Danny Russo. For the TVL, All-Star and Honorable Mention Recognition, Girls Ice Hockey, Jenna Nauman, Morgan Roach, and Lindsay Rogers were all All-Stars. Sophie Cruz, Molly Federico, and Michaela Reen were Honorable Mention. Boys Ice Hockey, Sean Dittmeyer and Ed Carroll were All-Stars. Sam Lally, Honorable Mention. And so was Anthony Amato. Also, a special recognition, the Tri-Valley League votes on one student athlete per league in both the boys and girls to be recognized by the Boston Bruins for a sportsmanship award, and this year the award was given to Kevin Roach from Norwood. So that was a great accomplishment and recognition for Kevin. Wrestling, Nate Sue, All-Star, TJ Wyman, All-Star, and Drew Bartuka was an honorable mention. Nate Sue was also a sectional champion for the second year in a row. Boys Swim and Dive, Joe Green, All-Star, David DiMattia, All-Star. Girls Swim and Dive, Anna Santana Alcantara, All-Star. Maddie O'Keefe, Colleen Sisk, and Bridget Sopel were honorable mentions. Girls basketball, Alexa Corus and Trish Rakowski were all-stars. Lauren Reen, honorable mention. Boys basketball, Noah Badette was an all-star. Maddie Mahoney, all-star. And Dylan Hamley was honorable mention. Noah Badette was also MVP of the Tri-Valley League for the second year in a row and was a Boston Globe and Boston Herald All-Scholastic. And our new boys basketball coach, first-year coach Chris Frioli, was named Tri-Valley League Coach of the Year. So that was a good accomplishment for Chris. Boys indoor track and field, Dylan O'Brien, All-Star. Jacob Zhang, honorable mention. Girls indoor track and field, Tina Fontaine, All-Star. Natalie Martin, honorable mention. Cheerleading, Caitlin Trahan and Chloe Hall were All-Stars. And gymnastics, Casey Collins was an honorable mention. So that was our winter sports recognition. Now we're on to the spring. This is week 4 of the spring, so we're full into game play, and it's nice to see the nice weather. All the kids out participating. Today we had like 7 different events happening today, so it's busy time. So thank you.
It sure helps having not a really wet winter to get fields open.
Yeah, the fields are good. Thanks to the DPW for all their efforts, and it's nice. It always kind of opens up. Everyone's apprehensive that first week of the spring. We're usually in the gym, and then that second week you kind of creep out, and then that third week it's here we go. So it's today we had girls lacrosse, boys tennis, volleyball in the gym, softball at Cleveland, baseball at the ball. So today was a busy day. So
It definitely smells like spring.
yeah.
Any questions about the sports awards?
No, just thank you and congratulations to all the athletes.
Yeah, thank you.
Great season.
Yeah.
Good work.
All right, so we are going to pull something else out of order. We're going to pull up Ms. Sheridan's athletic financial report from the following seasons. It follows on quite nicely with our report on our All-Stars and award winners. Just so I can see. So because of the way we're working, I've got to pull it up. I'm logged in. We have a Chromebooks.
Yeah.
Not it's not casting.
Yeah.
No, I just, it was,
You want me to do it?
this. Go for it. You think you can see it from there?
Anne-Marie,
You're good.
if you hit Control Plus, I think it might expand it a little bit.
Yeah. I did, I got it on the, what do you call it?
You got it. You gotta have
It's just
the
slow.
cursor. You gotta have the cursor in the middle of it. There you go.
It's
See?
just slow.
It's gotta travel all the way through the space over there.
Okay, you ready?
All right, so this is a new report that we developed this year to coincide with Jonathan's report on the great things that the athletes are doing. And we're going to try to do for each sport the financial piece of the athletics. I brought Ava Martin, one of the financial analysts, with me. So say hi. And I also want to mention that Samantha Stone, the other financial analyst, was not here tonight. And Mildred Maldonado, who works with Jonathan, were instrumental in getting this report ready for us. Okay. So the first sheet, it shows you the participants by season. So when you look at the increase and decrease number, that is not including the spring because all the spring athletes obviously haven't signed up yet. So this is really a fall and a winter report. For this fiscal year, we're down 36 athletes total. The athletic, if you see that, I'll get further into the number of athletes and further into this report, but the athletic fees are down 3,500. The gate receipts down 3,674. The other thing you notice, if you go down a little bit on it, can you put just a teeny bit down on the report here? There you go. So you see that. So we're working on reviewing a new policy for the waiver and free and reduced fees. So right now, the policy, I feel really needs to be reviewed. And the other thing that we're working on is getting some type of a town-wide, a school-wide policy and procedure on the paperwork. So it would be kind of a universal, free and reduced form to be used for all the school fees. So that's something that we're looking at right now. The waivers this year seem to be down substantially over last year. In the fall, we went from 43 waivers last year to 28 waivers. In the winter, down from 67 to 44. The other thing I want to mention before we dive into the actual winter and the fall seasons, this report I'm hoping will help with future athletic decisions because it will kind of show you the number of athletes and the different sports that you see an increase in your numbers or a decrease in your numbers. So that will help your participation. In the packet, you also have the balances that Jonathan has 2 revolving accounts that he has. So I have to give him kudos because he's been really good this year with budgeting and watching his accounts. So good job, Jonathan. And also, you can see the general fund and where he is with his accounts on that. The options that they have for paying for their athletics is check, cash, and UnionPay at the moment. Okay. So if you move over to, can you move over to the fall athletic report?
Spring,
Which is the
winter,
fourth tab there.
fall.
Right. Okay.
I'm impressed. I can barely see that.
I just squint really well.
Right. Okay. So here on the fall, so here you're going to see the different participants for each sport. And if you go down, and how much that the receipts they got for each sport for this particular season. Okay. So at the top, you're going to see you go up a little bit. It's kind of hard because it's not showing.
Up more?
Just have a teeny bit so we can see all the participants there. So you're going to say, okay, so you see all the participants. For the high school, for the fall, the high school is down 36 athletes. And the largest drop, it appears from the report, is football, which went from 80 And then the second drop appears to be field hockey from 40 to 34 students. In the middle school, it's up 28 athletes, and that's due to the cross country is pretty close to last year. There was a decrease, one boy and one girl, but then you added the girls' middle school volleyball, which had 30 participants. Looks like it was pretty successful for that, right, Jonathan?
Yeah.
So if you, it's kind of hard to see because it's large, but when you're looking at your report that you have a copy of, you can see the participants on the far right. You're going to see who's the paid participants, some of the unpaid that we're still working on getting, the workers, the family cap, and then on the far side you're going to see the participants and whether it's up or down. Okay. You see a little bit.
I can't hear what you're saying.
I say if you go to the far right, you
Okay.
can see the participants, but
There's
it's
a-
going to be hard.
Yeah, there's an
because you
echo in
can't see
here
the
that
whole
makes it
thing.
difficult, so.
So, right there, so you're gonna see the participants for each sport there. So you can see that bottom 30, that's where you're seeing the volleyball, so a bit less. If you want to pop over to the winter athletic report. So for winter athletics, the total of the fees and the gate receipts is $60,969. And the winter also appears to be down 41 athletes. And if you go down a little further, these are the different sports there. We see girls ice hockey dropped from 30 participants to 21. Gymnastics dropped from 26 to 17. Indoor boys track from 45 to 31. Indoor girls track from 28. That went up from 28 to 37. Wrestling dropped from 24 to 16. But again, in the middle school, you're up 13 athletes with the addition of the middle school wrestling program that you added. Okay. The rest of the report, I really wasn't gonna look at. You'll see it in your packet, which is what I showed you, which has got the athletic revolving funds that you can see the balances. It also has a general fund that you can see your balances. You can see the deposits on how we track the deposits, and then the ones that are cash. And the girls are really good at checking that Unipay to the news reports. So it's been really good checks and balances here. And again, I really think that Milton's doing a really good job getting in the revenue this year. Would you agree, Jonathan? It seems like she's doing a good job of getting the revenue.
Yeah, this is the second year that we've offered Unipay as an
Right.
option, so we've seen a big increase in people accessing that platform. Last year, I think, because it was new, we're seeing the majority of the people paying through Unipay this year, which is what we had hoped when we had started it. So that's been nice, because I think that's a more convenient platform for the parents and also for us in the office as far as, tracking
Tracking
information,
right.
so.
It's helpful. There's also a tab that has all the coaches and what the coaches' stipends are for each sport. Again, I'm not really going to go through all of that, but you do have it in your packet if you want to review that. So we're going to try to do this consecutively with Jonathan on every season to just give a little bit of update of how we're doing in the revenue and how we're doing in the numbers. And hopefully it will be a tool that you can use for decision making. So.
Yeah, and just to note sometimes that, there's ebbs and flows, like right now, like the spring season is not up there because it wasn't ready for this report, but to date, right now, we have the final numbers and we're up probably 40 student athletes from last spring, so that kind of levels out. Sometimes there's, the numbers fluctuate between season, but generally by the end of the year, the numbers are usually fairly consistent. The addition of the middle school programming, particularly like cross country grew a little bit and girls volleyball was really popular. So that's been, I think that program has been pretty successful. We were able to work closely with Margot and hire some coaches that also work in the middle school that have helped kind of develop and start those programs.
The fees are also on this report that you can see, so you'll see what the game admission fees are right now. You'll also see what the fees are for the athletics fees, which we're going to get into a little later with the fee analysis that we did. That's pretty much it, unless anybody has any questions on it.
So, my question, this is helpful, but if we're to use this as a decision-making tool, it would be helpful to know how much each sport spends. So it's helpful to know how much a sport brings in, but if a sport is spending X amount of money and bringing in Y amount of money, those two numbers need to be considered.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So we'll work on that. We started working on this last year, and I didn't feel it was ready yet. So this is, I feel confident in these numbers with, Mildred and Sam worked really a lot on this report, so I feel it's got some accuracy with it. So.
Two quick questions / comments. So we talked about this a little bit in the budget subcommittee, but Jonathan, sometimes you have to submit waivers when you don't have enough students from the high school for the JV and get the waiver so that the 8th graders can participate. Do you know which sports this year you had to do that waiver for?
So this year we had, in the fall, we used the waiver for boys JV soccer, girls JV field hockey, and in the winter we used it for boys and girls swim and dive. And this spring we just got an approval for JV girls softball. And people should know that within our league, within the area, that's similar to other communities and what sports are needing waivers, 8th grade waivers to participate. So this year was, and sometimes that does change year to year, and sometimes it's a little bit more consistent. Softball has been one regionally that numbers have been lower over the last number of years, and there's been a lot of schools accessing the waiver for that. This year, new sports that were kind of new to accessing the waiver, not just in Norwood, but around other communities, were field hockey and boys soccer. That was kind of a new, we had never used one for either of those before, so, and a lot of other communities saw the same thing. Sometimes you apply for one and you'll get kids, to participate, and sometimes, like swim and dive, we applied for it, and I think one student decided to participate. So it's not always that you're getting a big influx of kids participating either from the waiver, but typically what it's used for is, you have a certain amount of kids participating on like the junior varsity team, and you wouldn't be able to run the program without the waiver. So it's not necessarily the waiver, the philosophy behind the waiver, and I think this is probably important to state, it's not really a youth sports waiver. It's not necessarily for the 8th graders. It's to allow that sub-varsity program and those kids in the high school to continue to have that program. So it's a little bit different than starting middle school programming, right? Which is middle school level and for those students and to develop at that age. Accessing the waiver is really an opportunity to allow that high school program to stay, on for potentially, like a gap year where there may be a little bit of a numbers crunch one year, but then not the next. So that's maybe a distinction people should be aware of.
Okay, that's very helpful. And then I know you've been trying to grow middle school sports. What is your next sport that you're thinking?
Well, we just so people know, so interscholastically, we currently offer boys and girls cross country and girls volleyball in the fall, and then we offer wrestling in the winter. I think the next sport that we talked about would be, at some point, would be track and field. That would be something that would be kind of the next I know you know this, Teresa, but people may not know, when we did this study years ago, we talked about adding middle school programming when we could for the sports that didn't already offer a youth program in town. And so those were kind of our target sports, and that's what we've done so far. And track and field would be, you know, potentially the next. And also, you want to offer sports that the other middle schools have. You know, sometimes they're just, it doesn't exist, you know. But one thing that we've also done through the middle school is, like, for example, boys tennis is not a middle school sport. There's nobody in the surrounding area that has it. And we noticed our numbers were a little bit low, so we started a intramural tennis program, boys and girls tennis program this past fall. So that's another way that we can, if there's not a youth program and there's not middle school interscholastic offering, we can try an intramural program. And we've done that with cross country in the past prior to offering it, and we've also done it with tennis. And so that's another way that we can kind of help grow and develop the program.
Thank you.
Sounds like maybe we need field hockey.
We have youth field hockey through the Civic, so that's not one of the ones that was identified. But you know, you never know. Maybe down the line, right?
Just looking at where we're starting to fall off a little bit and where we might need a boost.
Well, it's been a while since we had that subcommittee too. I think that was 17, 18, right? That we did the athletic subcommittee.
If I remember correctly, that was Dr. Thompson's maybe first year on the.
Yep.
Yeah.
You did a great job chairing it.
Yeah. So 17, 18, so it's been a while.
Yep, the Bay State Tri-Valley League. That was a fun one. Yep.
It has worked out.
It has definitely worked out. Our win percentages are up, and obviously, as we see, once our kids get into the tournament, they do very well. So, yeah.
Well, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda is Dr. Thompson's report, but I'm logged in here, so I don't know if you need me to walk out.
No, you're fine. I'm not. I don't have really. I have like 2 slides, so it's not imperative that we use slides today. So, just real quick, a couple things wanted to bring up. And actually, Ms. Stewart is making me read this, but I'm going to read a letter from the MIAA and MSAA to myself, but it also includes Mr. Longley, who ran away, and Mr. Galligan. Dear Dave, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude. I'm sorry, this is from Bob Baldwin, who is the MIAA and MSAA Executive Director. The MIAA is the authority that oversees sports in the state of Massachusetts. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to you, Hugh Galligan, and John Longley for your time and effort during the training you attended at in our quest to eradicate hate and bias from the platform of interscholastic athletics. The program is supported and sponsored by the MIAA, Governor Healy, the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office, the Anti-Defamation League, DESE, and the MSAA provided a terrific forum for school leaders to share, move beyond silos, and achieve individual and collective voices to move the Commonwealth in the direction of positive normative change. Your participation as an inaugural member did not go unnoticed, and you should be commended for your leadership and commitment to this worthwhile initiative. As a former superintendent, I understand and appreciate the time and events that consume your calendar. However, your commitments at the end of the training were proof that, in your words, the Center for Sports and Society at Northeastern University over-delivered. The powerful 2-day training allowed for participants to be reflective in their practices and share in a safe space. You've set a high standard and firm foundation for the remaining 12 trainings around the state. I truly believe that together we can inspire social change and empower our adult and student role models to promote a sustainable culture of respect in our schools, on our playing fields, and in our communities. Cannot thank you enough for your continued dedication to not only your district and community, but our organization, the Commonwealth. We continue to grow courageous leaders in the pursuit of eradicating hate and bias. Signed, Bob Baldwin. So, Again, Teresa made me do it, but
Well, I did, because I think it's important. So I think I got that email because they thought I was still the chair. I believe that's why I was CC'd on the email. And when I saw it, I just felt it was important to acknowledge and to extend appreciation to you and Dr. Galligan and Mr. Longley for going above and beyond.
yeah,
So
thank you. Thank you. I'm joking with you, but.
I know, I did make you read it though. So
You
then we
did,
can
it is true,
acknowledge
it
that.
is true, you did. But it was held on a Friday and the next day, Saturday, so, all of us gave up a day out of our weekend, so. The other bit of news that I just got today is that we won, actually, this case because it was a competitive grant, but we were accepted into the ST Math for this coming year. It was a competitive grant. ST Math, it actually stands for Spatial Temporal Math. It is a gamification that develops spatial mathematics skills, and if anyone is a math teacher, I'm a recovering math teacher, you know that getting children to use their spatial and temporal skills and visualize math is an important pathway to be able to do higher level math. So this is going to be at the Willett, and I want to congratulate Dr. Bowler and Ms. Donnelly for their work on getting this in there and putting together obviously a great thing, but next year we'll be able to pilot that at our elementary school. It does not involve language, which means even students who do not speak English can get a quick start on math. It is a program that I did use in a previous district, Bridgewater Raynham. It is research-based and fantastic, and hopefully we can continue to grow it. So congratulations to them, and I just wanted to again highlight the concerted, aggressive effort to continue to get grants and into this district to offer things to our kids. And then the last thing, unfortunately, Ash to a Flame will not be able to participate in the New England drama festival. They had everything set up, but we could not, with the short notice, get a bus to take them to Maine. And it's not like Lower Maine, it's up there. So they will not be able to go, but they will be performing at the Fine Arts Festival, which I believe is the Saturday the 28th. Yeah, all right, so if you have not seen it, I would definitely watch that schedule and try to get into the 700-seat auditorium. It is well worth the 45 minutes to an hour to watch that show. And then lastly, job openings. We're still looking for that school psychologist. We are down to now 4 paraprofessionals, but we still need those. And of course, we're always looking for short and long-term substitutes, extended day staff, and we are starting to advertise and try to hire summer programming staff, and there will be another wave for other summer programs coming probably right after vacation. So that is the very brief superintendent's report.
I don't think we mind brief, considering what our agenda looks like tonight.
Yep.
Any questions for Dave on his report? Great. Just really quick, remind me, it's because of policy, right, that we couldn't have the kids like carpool up there or something like that, correct? It's because they would have to have a school paid for transportation for safety.
It opens a whole lot of liability. Yeah,
exactly.
and I know
for
people
those
say,
who are going, wait a minute, why wouldn't
right,
they
and
jump
I
in a bunch
know
of
that
SUVs?
parents are going to say, well, I would drive them. And again, it opens a tremendous amount of liability, not just for the district, but also for individual. We'd have to have parents get individual insurance riders, and it's
Right.
just.
But this is why I mentioned it, to
Yeah.
bring it up. I know
Yeah.
there's probably
No,
people
thank you.
saying.
No, thank you. It is something that we considered, and it's really kind of a third rail. So, and I know there's people that would do it and pack the kids in, but it's just a big liability. So.
Okay. All right, moving on to our next agenda item, budget subcommittee update. Invite the Sheridan to come back up.
Before Karen dives in, I'll just give like a broad subcommittee update, and then you can take over. So, we last met as a subcommittee on March 30th. Largely what we reviewed and discussed, we either just saw with the athletic report or we're about to see with Ms. Sheridan and Ms. Martin. We meet again as a subcommittee tomorrow morning, and our focus tomorrow is really getting ready for the town meeting presentation on April 24th.
Short version is budget is not over.
It's never over.
It's never.
All right, so we're going to do the fee analysis in the next tab.
Sorry?
The fee table tab.
Fee table tab. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, if you're speaking that way, I can't hear you. Okay, there you go. All right. Yep.
The first tab is the surrounding town analysis. So basically, Ava did a really nice analysis of the surrounding town fees for various fees in the district. So the detail of that is in that tab. So what we're going to go over right now is the recommendations of the different fees that we see. So the first fee is the athletics. So it currently is at $200 per sport for the high school, $100 per sport at the middle school, and a family cap of $800. From the analysis, it looks like it's in line with the average of the surrounding towns. So the recommendation is to keep these fees the same. The family cap, we looked at whether or not we should lower that or keep that the same. But given the fact that you now have your middle school athletics being added, and with a budget that we have going on, we felt like it would be better to keep things the way they are right now. And especially, like you said, we now have high school and middle school sports for that. Down a little bit more, the fine arts fee is currently at $150 per student. We're not able to get a lot of analysis. Ava tried to get some analysis on that with different towns, different districts, and not a lot of people responded. Even when you called, you didn't get much information on that. So at the moment, we feel that the recommendation to keep that fee the same, but we're going to continue to try to reach out on that one. But for the moment, we feel like keeping it at the $150 per student.
And Ms. Sheridan, I think we were saying in the budget subcommittee too, we need to do more work with Jeff Kerr, because the $200 for athletics is per season, but the $150 for fine arts is per year. So we did want to look into like the equity of athletics and fine arts, but we just haven't had the chance to do that. So we'll probably come back in the fall, I think we were saying, right, with more information.
Yeah, I think we really need to look further into the fine arts, especially given the fact that we're not getting a lot of analysis. And with the new director, and we'll get him in to go over that further. Okay.
So when that comes back in the fall, I would just re-emphasize the fact that I would like to see expenditures in addition to revenues in. So,
Okay.
Otherwise we can't tell how much we're subsidizing any given program.
Right. Especially, in particular with the athletics, seeing his revolving fund, I think it would be difficult to lower that fee right now. Because I know what you're saying, because I think that's a great idea. But his revolving fund, lowering it, I think he would have a difficult time in not only keeping within, but being able to increase the program to middle school and stuff.
Yeah, this is just for equity. If we're
Right,
looking
I
at
agree.
Fine arts and we're spending, we're subsidizing that program by 90%, but athletics only by 50%, then it becomes a much easier conversation in terms of equity.
Right, and I'd like to get more detail on the fine arts, which is why that one's one that we're going to continue to look at. We go down a little bit further to the bus fees. So the bus fees are currently at $300 per student with a $750 family cap. And that's for over 2 miles for that fee. Again, this looks like it's in line with the average of the surrounding towns. Again, on this one, we're going to watch that family cap for the future, but currently we feel the recommendation would be to keep these fees the same as well. All right, technology. Technology, we just found out that is an error on that. It is $30. So it's $30 for insurance for the Chromebooks. So if you purchase the $30 insurance for the Chromebooks, if your Chromebook breaks, you don't have to pay to have it repaired. The $35 is some of the fees that you pay. For example, if you're charger, you lose your charger, you need your replacement charger, that's $35. If you have a screen repair, no insurance, that happens to be $35 as well. So there's different fees for what breaks with your Chromebook. But that $30 for the insurance for the Chromebooks. Again, the recommendation is to keep that fee the same as well. Extended day, I'm gonna go down a little further on that. So extended day is currently at $7 per hour. Again, it looks in line with the averages of the surrounding towns. And Ava, pipe in if you want to pipe in with anything. Again, the recommendation of this is to keep the fee the same. And we also felt that with her analysis, it kind of showed that Norwood seems to have some really good options for families that not all the districts do have. And that's with the times and the days and the before and the after school program, and not everybody does that. So that was one thing. Keeping with the $7 per hour, we feel, because at the moment it still feels like that program is doing okay. In the past it was not doing okay, so it's nice to see that program is doing okay right now. So that one again, to stay at the $7 per hour. The preschool rates we already set earlier in the year. This is just to show you what the preschool rates are. We had set them earlier in the year when we did the analysis, again, of the surrounding towns. And the final one is the full-day kindergarten is free. High school parking. So the high school parking is $100 per spot. The seniors are offered their spot first. And then if there's any openings, the juniors are allowed to get one of the spaces. So that is a first come, first serve with the seniors. And then the juniors would be second. The one other fee analysis that we're going to be coming back with is going over the rent with Paul Riccardi. And in that the rent policies that we have, we need to find out the average for the custodians for next year, because that will set that custodial rate for some of the fees. And then also, according to, I did discuss with Paul about the rent for the various renters that he has, and he feels like the rent should remain the same, but we are going to change that custodial fee according to the policy. But I'm also going to sit down with Paul and go over all that rent. So that will become later on. I'm hoping to have that when we do that budget to date report with facilities. So that's the fee analysis.
I never want to say raise fees. However, I remember being in this seat 3 or 4 years ago when nobody had raised fees for 10 years on extended day. And we were put in a position where we ended up having to jump the fees by a huge amount. And so I'm wondering why we're not looking at incremental percentage increases, especially given the way that inflation has gone. So that instead of having giant jumps every 5 years, we instead have a more gradual jump every year or every 2 years, or something that's predictable. Only because I do not want to be in a situation like we were in with extended day, where parents suddenly found their costs doubled. I mean, costs doubled for after school care with 3 or 4 months notice.
For extended day, I'll tell you why I feel like they should stay the same for the moment.
Oh no, I don't want to touch extended day, because like I said, we just jumped them by 100%.
Oh, I thought you said extended day.
No, but I'm wondering why things like rent or the high school parking, why aren't we increasing that maybe, the high school parking maybe $5 over 2 years? Or why are we looking at increasing rate and pegging it to the cost of inflation, or half the cost of inflation? Something so that there's a predictable amount, so that people know that this is coming, and that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we're so far behind that we have to increase by 50%. Who else was there for that?
Yeah, I know what you're
It was
talking
horrible.
about. Yeah, absolutely. I hear what you're saying. So the our rental policy says every year we evaluate the fees, and like last year as part of the big policy audit overhaul, we did change some of the rental fees last year.
Yep.
So it's Karen saying she's to meet with Paul, and it's really the custodian fee that impacts the most. So she probably will be coming back with a recommendation on May 3rd. The preschool fees, as a reminder, we just increased those a couple of meetings ago. Part of the whole fee analysis the budget subcommittee committed to doing, and as you know, as part of our goals, came out of the equity audit. And I think we, at least I, went into this hoping that we would be able to reduce some of the fees, but just with the fiscal reality, we were not able to reduce. So I hear what you're saying about, if increases are going to come, we don't want it to be all at once. And Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong in anything I'm saying, but I think part of us committing to the long-term budgeting and working with the town for FY25 and beyond is also going to impact this. So in the fall, we can look at this again for the next school year. We were just hoping to have these fees in place now, so families knew if anything was going to change for next school year.
Right, so I'm asking more about a larger overarching process than any one specific thing. Like, I'd like for the budget subcommittee to look at, does it make sense to peg this to inflation costs or some other tangible cost? Because what I'm hearing right now is that it feels like, and that's hard to plan and justify. So I'm looking for more of a concrete process that the committee would look at. So it will go up by no more than 2% every year, or it will go up by no more than 5% every year, or it will always increase half the cost of inflation, whatever the budget subcommittee looks at. But I don't want to, when's the last time we raised the parking fee, right? We're looking at just raising the custodial fees, but why not the rentals?
So a lot of these, like the parking fee,
Yep,
goes into revolving account, we can only use it in the parking lot.
that's fine, but given that we're in it,
Yeah, so that's, right. And like the building rental fee, we can only use for costs for the building.
yes, but we all know how all of this, we all know how revolving funds work, and that that money then frees up money for us to use in other spaces, and we can only use it to repave the parking lot. But that means we can smoosh other money around that we don't have to pull from other places. And so my point is that I'm very sure that for 10 years, people said, oh, everything's okay, it feels good, we don't want to look at, I'm wondering why we're not looking at things like rent and charging people from outside of Norwood an incremental amount every year, increasing that rent every year. I mean, I'm not saying like Norwood Basketball Association, yes, just charging the custodial fees, but other folks, why aren't we looking at that?
Well, I think we do. There's a whole tier process, and that's what I was saying we changed last year, we increased, and Karen has to do that analysis with Paul. So that's coming back up on May 3rd.
So, right, the analysis that I'm hearing though is a comparison to other towns and looking at it that way. And what I'm saying is that leaves us vulnerable and open to having to make huge increases.
Well, I think the comparison to other towns on this spreadsheet that we have was more of what are we expecting our students and their families to pay. I don't think that was the same as the rental fees.
No, the rental is going to be different because I have to go over that with Paul Cardi. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were trying to keep in line with the average of the other districts for the other fees because like for example, the bus transportation, the average is 303 and
So-
300.
And what I'm saying is I don't think that pegging process is the most efficient because it's gotten us in trouble in the past and it's gotten our parents in trouble in the past. So I guess what I'm asking the budget subcommittee to do is to go back and look at, is that going to give us the results that we want, or are we letting our costs be driven by other places, or should we learn lessons from the extended fee debacle and set a different metric where we're increasing slowly? Because that was the conversation that we had during the extended fee, not extended fees, extended day fee conversation.
The extended day, just another example I want to give you is extended day. So with revolving funds, there's a fine line because there was a time, and we were all here when extended day was not doing well, so we had to raise the fees in order to do it. But then there's also a line that you're not supposed to be profitable for it. So and I agree.
I'm not looking to be profitable. I'm
Right.
just asking that you look at whether or not pegging it to the average towns is the best process by which to decide whether or not the rent increase is desired.
The rent, I agree. I think the rent needs to be looked at further. And
Okay.
that's going to happen.
And extended day and all of these other things. Like I guess I'm asking for, or an articulation of why the process of pegging it to other towns is the best, because I'm not convinced that that's not going to lead us into trouble. So I'm looking for either a justification for why that process is the best, or an alternative process to use moving forward about decisions as to whether or not to raise rents. I'm not disputing the fee analysis at all, and I don't want to raise rates. My concern is that 5 years from now, when suddenly kids have to pay $200 to park because we didn't incrementally raise rates, right? And suddenly asphalt is $700, whatever it is, like a thing, or like whatever it is that we need to end up doing. Because we have found ourselves in this position in the past, and school committees in our town have a history of not staying up to date on things. We just have to do a 10-year policy. You know, some of our policies haven't been finished in 10 years. More than 10 years. You know, we had the extended day. So that's all I'm asking. It's not saying we should raise rents or anything like that. It's just knowing, let's try to make sure we're aware and have a process so that we don't end up raising rates by an unsustainable amount like we've had to do in the past.
Right. I think that it's going to have to be a school committee decision on whether you want to go with each year looking at the analysis of the surrounding towns, or, like, for example, transportation, you may be within the average, which right now you are. However, your school district may decide that that's not exactly how we want to determine what your fees are going to be. So that really is a decision that has to be decided. You know what I mean? Because obviously transportation is having a lot more expenditures than we had anticipated in the past. So there is a side that could say, we've got a lot more expenditures from transportation. However, if we're going to be looking at the surrounding town averages, we are at the surrounding town averages. So it's kind of like, how do we want to approach this?
Yeah, and Jen, I think, again, this decision earlier in the school year to dive into the fee analysis was really born out of the equity audit. And we worked on it in the fall, and then we paused a little bit because we had to work on budget for fiscal year 24, and then we came back. And I hear what you're saying, I'm not repeating what you're saying. But I do feel like it's going in a different direction than the direction we had talked about in September when we said as one of our goals we were going to do a fee analysis. And it's still like, I wish, and if you look at the budget subcommittee minutes, it's like documented in there, I wish we could be reducing fees and lowering family cap, because we are a district of like 40% low income now, and that's going to continue to grow. So increasing fees when our student need is going in a different direction has not been the premise of the budget subcommittee. So I guess if the majority of the school committee wants us to take a different direction, then we need to have a motion and a vote, because that does change our work.
I'm not asking for a vote. I'm asking for the budget subcommittee to look at various processes to bring back to the school committee so we can consider it, so that we don't end up in a situation like we were in with extended day fees. I do not want to raise fees. My fear is that if we are not doing it incrementally a little bit at a time, we're going to end up having to do it by 50%. So I'm not asking the budget subcommittee to change directions or do anything like that. I'm simply asking, is this the best way, by pegging us to the surrounding towns, to make sure that we don't end up in another extended day? I'm simply asking the budget subcommittee to discuss, do some research, and come back to the committee and say, yes, it is the best way, or no, it's not the best way. And then if we need to change, we'll change.
I don't think the entire analysis is just based on surrounding towns. I think what you're asking we are doing. So and what Karen is doing is looking at not putting us in a position that we're not able to fund these things, and that is looked at each and every year, that the fee is able, to offset, the budget appropriately, and so I think that does happen every year, that the fee that we currently have is adequate to have an adequate offset against the budget, that we don't need to increase. Now, obviously, could something happen next year where every single, the bus contract that in 2 years they decide to triple it or something like that, and all of a sudden we're faced with a fee increase? But I don't know if I'd be in favor of just incrementally increasing just because, inflation goes up, and if we don't need it, and then we're actually, if it's not necessary. I think that, I'd be in the position that you don't increase it until you have to. But I agree with you, like what happened with extended day, but that was, But if
We're
you
engaging
can't even
in
use
the-
extended days and excuse
We're
it.
engaging in the conversation that I'm asking the budget subcommittee to engage in and to come back.
But
and give
that's what I'm
us
saying is
something.
we've done that. I mean, we do that every single budget season.
Then I need to hear something other than I feel like we're at a good place for this. I feel like we're at a good place for this. What is determining that? And we have such a long agenda this evening that I'm gonna actually seed this because we have to get through everything and I can type up my thoughts and send it off to the budget subcommittee. And we can put it on an agenda.
No, we can do that. I mean, and we can send you, the Karen's analysis, but because, it's all part of the budget process. It's, showing that we have the revolving funds and that, can offset the budget is the analysis.
But we already, I think there's some confusion though, Joan, because we already get some of what you're saying in Karen's quarterly reports. And I send out, I push out every single thing that we review in the budget subcommittee. So if you go back and you look at those folders, like that analysis is done.
Like,
I think that we continue to not be able to understand. I don't feel like I'm being understood. You don't feel like you're being understood. And again, I just reiterate, this is a very long agenda. And so this isn't mission critical for right now, so we can.
I think I may be hearing what you're saying is I think that the analysis has to be more than just the surrounding towns. So to be based on the increase. So there could be years that when you're doing this analysis, even though you're around the surrounding towns, you still feel like your district needs to increase those rates. So basically, doing that complete analysis to determine the fees, I think is what you're saying. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say tell us why things aren't increasing then, if that's a different way to say it. Right? Tell us why things aren't increasing and tell us what you think the 2 to 3 year projection is for increases.
That's great. Because we do, myself, I watch the revolving funds like a hawk to make sure that they're right. So that should be included in the analysis, and I agree. And I think that we haven't really stated that in when we were talking about it. So that is something that I agree with has to be part of the analysis.
This isn't faulting the analysis at all.
No, I get
This is the
what you're saying.
PTSD from the extended fees. Just-
I agree.
and the very real impact it had on families. If your after school care goes up by 50% in the space of 3 months, that's a killer.
And I hear that PTSD because it languished for so long that we know that the program wasn't even self-sustaining by the time we finally decided to raise the rates. That was a glaring oversight.
I know we're doing a much better job of constantly monitoring where we are with our revolving accounts than where we were before. So I think part of that big jump was the fact that that really wasn't happening before. So.
And when you come in the fall, tell me why fees shouldn't increase and what the 2 to 3 year projection is for fee increases.
Okay. I hear you.
And then I feel like we have a better sense, and people will know in the next 2 to 3 years it's projected to increase by 5%, 10%. And obviously, no one could predict COVID. If a school burns down, like all of those things like a crisis. If a crisis happens,
Knock on wood, right?
Nobody expects that. I don't know what's the first thing.
Yeah, we need a big red, no crisis sign.
Yeah, and not if COVID comes along. Like nobody expects you to predict COVID.
No, but it's not just COVID. I mean, there are revolving funds that I'm watching.
Yeah.
So if they start to become a problem, then I would recommend the fee be raised because you wouldn't be able to sustain what you're doing. So I agree with you in the year. I think what you're saying.
Any other questions around the fee analysis?
No.
I thought you took a breath. I was like, oh no.
No, I tried to stop that for multiple times.
I'm not going to bring up the next one if you have it.
Okay, so the next budget item is the facilities budget date template.
And hopefully this is going to be real short.
Yeah, I'm not going to bring this up.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, all right.
I can't, it's in front of me and I can't even read it, so.
In your packet, I'm not going to say anything. So in your packet, you've got your facilities. So I developed this template to help us with the facilities budget to date report. So for them to use to report out your quarterly facilities to the school district. So the budget, as we have discussed in the past, is the budget is 9 munis by account. So there's no way to download a report for you to do a quarterly budget to date, that would do budget to actual to get you the report that you're wanting for a quarterly basis. So I thought, okay, how am I going to fix this so that you're able to get your quarterly budget to date? So I did this template, and I took the budget that facilities had presented to you, and I pulled it out to be just the school's facilities budget. And then I attached a budget to each category. And what I have here is Mary O'Brien, who is the woman that handles the budgeting and reporting for facilities department, will have to enter the actuals and the encumbrances that she gets from Eunice. And then if she enters her actual encumbrances, that it's formula-based, which would show you the budget to date. The only thing about this is they do not encumber payroll. So if you really want an accurate accounting of what your budget to date is going to be with an estimate of where you think it might be at year end, they're going to have to, as well, put in their encumbered payroll in that encumbered payroll section. So otherwise, I don't really know how she'd be able to give you a quarterly report, but I think this is, in my eyes, the best approach to be able to give you a budget to date that might have some accuracy with it. If it was in Eunice with budget in each account, then she'd be able to give you budget to actual, but you still would not see the payroll because that is not encumbered in this system. So then they'd have to put that in.
So does the town money just exist in a pot somewhere? Like that they don't, so then what does Munis do?
Eunice should be able to do this. So, Ms. Sheridan, thank you so much for creating this, and I appreciate it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You should not have needed to do this. Munis has the capability of doing it, and I don't understand why our counterparts in general government refuse to have Munis do what the accounting system is designed to do. But at this point, it is what it is. And we can talk about it more, David, when we talk in a few minutes about the direct facilities MOU, because there's a clause in that MOU that I'm going to say we really need to make sure they understand when we sign this. But we have been asking for a year now that we would get budget-to-date reports from Mr. Riccardi in the facilities department, and we have not gotten a single one. So Ms. Sheridan spent a lot of time creating this so that we could finally get the budget-to-date report. So I still think it should be in Eunice, but I think this is a very important first step so that we all feel more comfortable with the facilities budget.
I do want to note that the very first year I was here, you had just put in Eunice, and payroll was not encumbered. So I did have to manually do reports to payroll, and that is not an easy task. So we have now. We did put the payroll encumbrances in, but you really have to monitor the accuracy of your payroll encumbrances, or else your Munis report will be incorrect. But now we do have it down, and I'm lucky enough to have Gina Meng, who does a really great job on that. So, but that was something that I had to do the first year that I was here. I had to manually encumber payroll. You remember that?
I remember.
So it's not an easy task to get that to be able to tell you what your year end is going to be. Yeah. But in order to get an answer, which I think is what you're looking for, this is what they're going to have to do manually.
Right. So, to go back to Munis, we have it set up to follow the DESE coding system that we have to do our accounting with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The town only has to report to the Department of Revenue, and they do not have all of this numbers, letters, and crazy system that is here. So it's Spanish and French, if you will. Mm-hmm. And you can't have it double entered into Munis, because then your bottom line for the town would not. So I understand why it's a different system based on their rules. But the problem is we need to have the information in a format for our reporting and our audits and what have you. So this was what we agreed to last year, was to have it done on a spreadsheet, and it's pretty simple. As you go along, you put it into the Munis system that they have with their codes, and you just, in a spreadsheet, track it as you go, and it should not be, you should still be able to do it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I got here, that's how this school system actually did all of its budgeting, was with Excel spreadsheets, because the archaic system we had before did not have anything close to the DESI code. So it can be done. We need to support them in the transition, and that's what we'll do.
You are way more forgiving and kinder than I am.
But they're moving towards that,
No,
right?
no, they're not, and they should be. And I will make sure it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, the impression I got when Paul Riccardi was here the last time with his assistant was that they were moving toward that.
He's misspoken.
Yeah. So, yes, this was shared with them, I think, before he appeared, so yes.
So when Paul comes on May 1st,
That's-
this is the report that we will be getting?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can't vouch for that.
Any other questions for Ms. Sheridan before we let her off the hot seat? One other quick budget item, if you haven't, if you guys didn't see that the House Ways and Means did publish their budget today. Yeah, and it,
Also set a stake on $450 million from a vape settlement.
what's that now?
Wait a minute.
Okay, so anyway, Chapter 70 remain the same. Full funding of Circuit Breaker, full funding of McKinney-Vento.
We can lobby, because there was a decision out today in Massachusetts is one of the states where they're going to get probably about $450 million more in a vape settlement lawsuit by a
Well,
couple of states.
that would potentially make up for the dumping in revenues, however, in the beginning of the year, which were not
Totally.
great.
But I think that's money to go after,
Yeah.
especially with those issues in schools. I think lobbying to have something pushed into Chapter 7.
But I just wanted to let you know that got published to the state website today, and they are, I think we have until Friday if we want to ask for any amendments. I gotta tell you, I've never done this before. I started looking through the amendments and I was like, oh, so this representative from this town is getting a light up sign for their public library, and then, this, but I'm like, well, what do we want? What do we want to put in there? But they would have to be in by this Friday, and then I think they're going to debate, the House debate after April vacation. But no changes to the governor's budget, which is good news.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
So moving along to the next item is the long-term agenda review. I don't want to spend any time on this, obviously, because we're talking about our really full agenda tonight, but so hopefully everybody got a chance to take a look at this before the meeting. Pretty much just want to do it, ask if everybody, first of all, has anything that they feel like is not on here, that should be on here, especially, looking through to specifically May. The May 3rd is, David, we took a nice deep breath there. Did you see May 3rd? You thought today was crazy? But as we get closer to the end of the school year and things that just need to be done, it's getting pretty packed. I know we really weren't going to be able to fit in a second meeting in April, just the way that vacation fell. It just was not really going to work, but it's really killing us that we didn't, to be honest.
I'm sorry. We might be going to be saying the same.
Yeah, I spent time giving you some feedback on the document already, so you have most of my thoughts in writing. But my biggest question, Dr. Thompson, there's things that I think absolutely have to be done in May and June, but where you slot them is going to depend on the update with the handbook. So what did you, Mr. Brown, and the principals decide with the handbook?
The principals are available and willing to do the 2 dates in June. So I think that once I will circle back with them, but those handbook dates have got to get moved. The handbooks will be done the beginning of May for the policy subcommittee, so hopefully we can get them in the high school the beginning of June, middle school beginning of June, and the elementary maybe the end of June.
So, do we want to split and put June as MSHS and
I'm gonna,
first
I need to,
elementary?
my first thing was to make sure that the 21st was an okay date. We might do all of them on the 21st at this point. So we need to dig a little deeper, but they will be in June, so.
Did we
Can
talk?
we just put them all on the 21st then?
Well, are you also moving the school improvement plans, or those are staying in May?
I would like to, so as soon as I've told them that we're going to probably be flopping them, they seemed okay with that, especially the updates. They felt that once the one-year update template was finished, which we're going to do a little bit later, that they would have them to the school committee for on the 28th of April, which means they should be able to be updated in May.
But do we want to move it back for the sake of this? Is that what we're thinking?
Okay, move to the second May meeting, sure. Yep.
Well, the updates are just a written
Right,
report.
updates
The
are just a
principals
written
don't have to
report.
come. So the only principals that need to come and give us their 2-year plans are the Callahan, the Willett, the Oldham, and the high school.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we've been trying to structure it is that when they would come deliver the 2-year plan, they would also give us their handbook. So that's definitely Dr. Callahan for a 2-year plan and his high school handbook, and then it's some of your elementary team.
Right.
Right,
So-
which is why we had talked about keeping it together and just pushing it to
So
June.
if the committee would like to have it together, then we will look at dates in June. That's not a problem.
It just seems to be roomier, and then they just have to do both at once and
Yep.
keep it. It's a little cleaner, unless there's a reason that I can't. So,
Yep.
No, but if you move everything in June, then everything I wrote on there last night for May, you now have room for.
This is true. This is true.
Which is why I was just trying to think
Well, that's
of-
why we're doing this.
Right, right. I mean, no, I think that if the committee is okay with moving those things to June and they don't, especially because we talked about the handbooks are no longer, getting them to the printer type of thing because everything's digital, then, I mean, that's, that
Right.
works. We used to have to do it in May. There was no option.
right,
Right.
right, right, right.
Right, we have a little more flexibility, so.
Okay. So yeah, so we can definitely move these off to at least, next term, June.
Can I just copy and paste them there?
Oh, they weren't.
So, does that, are we talking about, so we're talking about the school handbooks, are we also talking about the PTO and staff handbooks, or did we just keep that?
Well, didn't Dr. Taylor say those are being pushed? Your staff handbook?
The staff,
being
the
pushed
staff
as well, because we have to revise the entire policy manual based on the March changes that came out.
That's right.
So that's what I'm in the process of doing now, redlining what we've
Got it. So, and forgive me, I've seen about 1,000 emails. Did you think this June or the summer? Or are we thinking like more summer for this?
I'm hearing summer is when there may be more bandwidth to review, so I think summer would be fine.
Okay. Would that be the same for the PTO handbook, do we think?
Yeah, I mean, it depends
I-
on how things go. I don't think we need to rush having an answer. We might want to discuss it, but I don't think we need to rush having an answer in the early
Yeah, just
May,
feel like,
because
yeah,
we're gonna have had that April 25th meeting, and there might be questions from that. But I think it makes sense to sew it up in June this summer, yeah, so that we can get it. Well, yeah, I mean,
Do you think that we'll have enough time in the policy subcommittee to get that hashed out?
well, not before this May meeting.
No.
So I think we should push it to.
I mean, it's
to
getting
June.
pushed. It's definitely not May 3rd, but,
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to
What do
be
you have it now?
realistic about where it's
17th or
going.
3rd? Oh, yeah.
Probably makes sense if the ultimate goal that those are approved by us in August and ready to be shared with staff and PTOs in September, right?
Right,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
they're putting together some plans now, but if we haven't asked for them, like we talked about, having some kind of format to have an idea of what their plans are. We let them know that before the school year. So August, yes. I'm rambling, but yes.
So can we put under the June 21st meeting, like, a summer meeting tab and just start, if we need to
Start
move
it?
stuff there?
Yeah, so actually, we're gonna need to start a brand spanking new one.
don't worry.
So this
I got
says
that.
August 2022, but in previous years, it's been July of 2022, so we weren't able to get our
Yeah.
crap together to get together or not in July, because we were
He's itching to scribe.
People travel.
He's itching to scribe. Oh, dear.
No, there might be a long-term agenda made for next year already. Popular. Who knows?
Lovely.
Who knows?
Well, I would share that sooner rather than later because I might have already started one as well. So, you know, that would be terrible to duplicate the effort. All right.
Amber, if I can make a suggestion, just because as we pointed out, we've got a long meeting and agenda can be discussed offline.
Yes,
I'm just really worried, and I've said this a few times, and I said it in an email last night, about the alignment of all the work that we're doing. So we have our budget long-term agenda, which we can touch base on tomorrow in the subcommittee. There's a policy long-term agenda that maybe the policy subcommittee can work on. And those things should really be funneling consistently in alignment to this. And then there's things in Dr. Thompson's goals that need to be added in because we set benchmarks for when he's supposed to be reporting on a few things. Again, I already dumped everything that I was thinking when I reviewed, you know, the different things that I'm involved in. But you as chair and Dr. Thompson as superintendent can decide if you like my suggestion or not. But I just don't think it's a productive use of our time to spend much more time on this unless there's something others see that's not on that they want to vocalize. But I think scrolling through is just not efficient.
No, I agree with you, and I intended to do it that way, and then we started chatting about the different things, and I wanted to capture them before I forgot.
Sure.
But no, I completely agree with that.
I mean, why do we, not to be dense, but why do we ever check in on the long-term agenda in these meetings then? Like, that's all you were doing, right? I mean, like other than like what we've done via email, like this is supposed to be a monthly thing. Maybe we don't need to do it in our meetings on a monthly basis if we're doing what you're saying, which is via email, making sure that it agrees with the subcommittee agendas.
Well, via email, we can say, I'd like this to be discussed, but if there's something that you want to say, oh, I didn't see, please add it. But I think that just the last couple of meetings of scrolling through a long-term agenda is just not efficient.
No, I think what Kate's point is, like, why do we go over it at all in a meeting?
Because sometimes one person may want something that the rest of the committee doesn't. So this gives us a chance to say, Teresa said do this, 4 of you don't agree, and now it comes off of the long-term agenda. But in terms of just like scrolling through, I just think
No, I
agree.
agree with you. I don't.
Yeah, maybe we can just vet it beforehand. If
Usually if we have like a shorter meeting, I don't mind as much.
Yeah, but instead of having it monthly discussed, we could just say, unless, you know.
Well, then you're gonna have to change the policy.
Yeah, that might be worth it. I'm just saying, in terms of efficiency. It's all good.
Okay. Were there any other comments or any concerns about the long-term agenda, especially the next couple? Anything that was missing, anything that needs to be added? I think I don't have, just as a FYI, I don't think we have anything on here for the elementary study subcommittee, so just to keep that in mind. I don't remember when you guys are meeting next, but if you want something on here for that.
We're meeting May 16th.
I would add May 17th.
Okay, so yeah, just like everybody has access to this, definitely add.
I added it last night.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it?
Under May 17th.
Oh, no. I see MSBC, I don't see elementary.
Oh, there it is.
Is it? Oh.
So she didn't do it in the proper format.
Because there is no proper format anymore.
The check boxes, so I know it gets on the regular agenda.
He's sighing heavily over here.
All right.
Just one question. Are we definitely doing the April 25th? Because not everybody responded to the email.
That is actually a really wonderful question.
I cannot. That's not a good week for me.
There are never any nights that are good for me until June, but that's the reality.
You can't do 6:30, April 25th? I just worry that we don't have certain things that we need to decide before Dr. Thompson does strategic planning with the admins.
At best, I can do a hybrid, but I will be ferrying children back and forth.
Okay. Can we
Is
hide
that
it?
across the river Styx, or how are you?
Occasionally, it's down to Canton. Sometimes it's multiple children, so
Would it be easier, because we said, we didn't say whether we would do it in person, we can do remote. Do we think it would be better to do this in
Or
person?
do we want to do in person?
I don't care. I just think we need to meet.
I mean, I think we could do it remote.
If
Would that
we
make
do
it easier
remote,
for
I can
people?
make it work, but I may be a little bit late.
David, I know you said 5:30 is definitely too early, so like what time for the two of you is easier?
Probably like, I don't want to keep the committee too late, so are we looking at an
Well, for me,
hour?
the later the better. So,
Are we doing like a 6:30 to 8?
I'd say more.
Yeah. Or what is
I have a meeting at 8, so we got a 7:45 end, but,
You're the boss, you can step up.
We can,
but
make it really.
do 6:30, do 7.
Let's do 6:30 to 8 then.
Does that work for most? And then,
I may be a few minutes late,
yeah.
but, yeah.
And if we did it
If
remote,
we
would
can do
that,
it
would that,
remote.
would that help a lot of people? I appreciate that.
So what are we calling this?
It's a subcommittee meeting of the whole. Which is not my language, it's MASC language.
Subcommittee
Meeting
of
of
the whole. Okay. You say so. All right. Who else do you want there? Probably you.
All right, so, please don't have anything else on the long-term agenda. Great, moving on.
Point of order, did we need to vote on the fees after the fee analysis for them to go into effect next year? Because we didn't vote. It says vote in our agenda.
Well, we didn't change anything, but
But we still
But
have to
they're the
re-up.
fees for next year, right?
the only thing we have to vote on is the rental fees, which we didn't, that'll be on May 3rd.
So you
But, I
don't have to
mean-
vote if it's not changed?
I mean, we haven't in the past.
Okay.
But if people want to vote, we can.
I make a motion to approve the fees as outlined by the budget subcommittee, Karen and.
Ava.
David was like, mo.
David seconded.
David second. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
All right, so there's a Google Meet invite coming your way as we speak. Otherwise, we don't remember to do it.
Okay.
How did you do that?
So while you figure that out, so we'll move on to the next one. There we go. So the next item is the facilities MOU. It is back on again because now, yay, the Board of Selectmen is going to vote on this version. There are a couple of different versions in your package, just so you guys know. I did put in the same one I'd had from a while back that was the markup from Melissa. The town side has accepted almost every single thing that Melissa put in there, with the exception, there was one thing that in that first paragraph, we had very deliberately, when Ms. Plasko and Ms. Donahue and myself and Kate got together, had put in some language around preliminary committees, like to, you know, what do we call it, preliminary hiring committee.
Preliminary, yeah.
Yeah, and we had specifically put that in there, and Melissa she struck it, but then with the question, well, wait, but did you put this in there for a reason?
Right.
Yes, we did. So that was the one thing that Melissa suggested that we did not accept. But the town did accept adding an extra line onto that, number one, to make sure that Dr. Thompson always has the ability to see a final candidate and approve it before they are offered a position. Sorry?
Before you go, can I ask, is the most up-to-date one, if you open the folder in the drive, like on the second row, with all the gray in it? That's the one that's crossed out and all of that.
The one that's crossed out is so there's 5 files in the folder.
Yes.
So one of them says Murray comments, so that is the marked up version from Melissa.
Yes.
Then there were 2 others that were just the Word document and then the PDF clean for approval, and the reason those were the ones to be approved, but then Teresa pointed out to me today that I forgot to update the new Board of Selectmen. So there are 2 that say Town-wide Facilities MOU clean for updated selectmen. And that does update that Matt Lane is now the
Oh, I see.
chair,
So that's
and Michael Saad is now taking the place of Helen. So that is why, and I can't remove them, so that's why there's multiple versions in there. But It is the exact same language. For approval ones are all the exact same language with the exception of that last page updating the selectmen.
Emery, can I just read, just so we're all like 1,000% clear and it's documented in a meeting before this goes to the Board of Selectmen, that the one that you're talking about, number 1, says the general manager shall appoint the facilities director. When there is a vacancy in the position, the general manager shall establish a preliminary screening committee consisting of the school superintendent and 2 members of the school leadership team selected by the superintendent of schools, and 2 other members appointed by the general manager. Said preliminary screening committee shall be advised by the Human Resources Department and select at least 1, but not more than 5 candidates to forward to the general manager for appointment. No appointment may be made unless the superintendent has been afforded an opportunity to meet with and provide feedback on the final candidates. That's the language.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And like I said, the one Melissa had suggested striking the preliminary, but we put that in there very purposefully to allow us, we have a perfect internal candidate. We don't need a big formal
Yeah, fair.
to do. Does anyone else have any questions on this? It's been a long time coming. And I'm going to be so happy to get this off my plate.
Not a question, but again, going back to what we were talking about earlier with the report that Ms. Sheridan put together, in number 12, it does say this includes a system that uses the DESE reporting codes. Quarterly reports should be provided to both the Board of Selectmen and the school committee from the facilities department on costs, budget updates, and projects. So the things that we have been asking for are very clearly written in this MOU that we're going to sign.
Yes, and unfortunately, I would not counter, because I agree with you, but that, unfortunately, Ms. Sheridan had to make it herself, but we will hopefully be getting reports with desk codes going forward, now that there is a template to be filled in.
It also says that we're going to review again in June, so we can talk about it in 6 weeks.
Yeah, because it took us a little while. So I would actually say we leave that language in there because we want it to be in June.
100%.
Well, if it gets reviewed again this June, and it's going to be like a fast,
Well, I think our point is the one that Teresa is bringing up, which is, you're not doing what you said you were going to do.
Yes. And they need to document.
Right. If they begin to fill this out and keep the reports, they will be in compliance with that one.
Not to, I shouldn't say it, but
Oh, say it.
it will be an audit finding if they don't follow that.
I'm aware,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is why I said before, I will make sure this happens.
Motion to approve the expectation.
What was that motion approved?
I'm going to continue my motion. Motion to approve with the expectation that we will use this language and review again in June.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I don't know which meeting this month, but it is on one of the agendas for this month for the Board of Selectmen.
Great. Thank you, Emery.
I don't know, drop your plates off the table and on the ground.
It's fine. Okay, all right, so moving right along, Dr. Taylor is going to give us an update on the extended learning time grant.
So we have had a small work group working with Mass Insight for the past 2 months, examining whether or not extended learning time would be feasible in the district. And so the team, all of the elementary school principals, their literacy coordinator, director of extended day, joined the group, and essentially they looked at 3 different models. So academic enrichment, recreational enrichment, and teacher collaboration. And they went through a process of looking what implementers around the state were doing. They did a feasibility analysis to see what we have in terms of our resources. And ultimately, the team decided that ELT was probably not a good fit for us at this moment in time. What that means for the grant is that because we wrote it as a planning grant, we have over $200,000 to use for this summer. So it's good that we did that in the initial writing of the grant because it's actually giving us more breathing room with our ESSER funds. So we have more space to be able to do other things. So no impact on the budget. The team went through a thorough analysis and just determined at this time that it wasn't a good fit.
Any questions for Dr. Taylor? So we don't need to vote on anything, like.
Nope.
Just for the sake, just what were the main themes, sort of reasonings, like, as to why?
Time intensive.
Time intensive, and just like coverage and.
Yeah, time intensive, in terms of teacher time, it would be an increase in teacher time, and just studying the day. Principals were also concerned about, sustainability. So during the course of doing this process, one of the but disappointing news that came out was that DESE was no longer endorsing ELT as an evidence-based practice.
Oh.
Because it's time intensive. And school districts essentially have said that we can't sustain it because.
Right.
So they gave you a planning grant, and then they said, oh, never mind, we don't endorse what we told you to plan for.
Yep, just
Wonderful.
kidding. Yeah.
Wow.
We get to keep the money. So
That's great.
That's great. That's so
We get-
interesting.
Yeah, we get to keep the money. We made an amendment to the proposal last month so that we were able to move a lot of that money to summer. And we still have access to it to summer, so it is going to supplement Summer Matters and Lunch Legal Academy, along with a host of other things.
So it is still funding extended learning time.
Yep.
But just this immediate summer rather than a longer term.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your work on the planning process.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Next item, Dr. Wyeth is going to talk to us about the school calendar update.
Yeah, it's really just a small update to our calendar that you had previously approved. What the principals and administrative team recommended sort of after the fact was that instead of having 2 early release times, we have a different time for those 3 early releases that come right before vacation versus our professional development early release days. And it's created a lot of confusion for parents over the years, and they said, why can't we simply just correct this and have 1 early release time, for each level? So that's what the proposal is asking for. It did have support from our union leadership. It will simplify matters for a lot of people. One thing you should know about that is that part of that will require us to do a sort of an in-school lunch for kids, as opposed to just giving them some, a grab-and-go kind of thing. So that the principals say not a problem. Our food service says not a problem. We'll, make the lunch work, and the principals will schedule around that. So that's the recommendation, and it should make things easier for people. It will also give us a little extra time, on those 3 days, but it's not significant.
Dr. Weiser, Dr. Thompson, what changed with the lunch? Because traditionally, before this current school year, on an early release day, lunch wasn't served in any capacity at the secondary schools. So I'm not against lunch, don't get me wrong, but I'm just trying to understand what has changed that now the grab and go isn't an option, but they do have to find time to accommodate a sit-down lunch on a half day.
Yeah, so the grab and go was okay during COVID as a lunch serving option. The Food and Drug Administration is now moving away from that, saying you have to have a lunch and not just leave with a bag.
Right, but before the school year, at Coakley and the high school, there was no...
Technically, you are supposed to serve lunch in order to count it as a day.
Oh.
Yeah, so they've just sort of tightened up that requirement or expectations.
I can't say I'm terribly upset with having the school days end at the same time, because it was, even when I seriously,
Which one
is this an early one? What time?
Yeah.
And then I couldn't find it.
And, with 42% low income and 57.7% high needs, I think making sure they have lunch every day that we can is a good thing. So.
Yeah, no, I'm not against lunch, which is why I love the idea of the grab and go this school year for everybody.
Right, but we can't do that and have it called lunch.
Interesting.
So.
Since we're talking about calendar, we're at my bugaboo that's not related to times, but rather half days versus full days for professional development, and ask the budget subcommittee to again look at the cost for consolidating some of these half days into full day professional
I
development.
think we can definitely.
You have already done it?
Yes.
Well, it's
Just
not, no,
asking to
no,
do it
no,
again.
it's not
Next
even,
year.
it's not even budget, it's, because, well, it is, it's teacher
It is.
budget, because we would
Yeah.
have to pay for more days. That's,
But it's also contractual.
and that's what I'm saying, like, it's contractual, like,
But Ms. Sheridan's already done the analysis.
And it was too expensive this year, I'm just bringing it up that I'd like for us to consider again in the next budget cycle.
I again do not disagree with you. I too hate all the half days, and the randomness they seem to have, but
Sometimes if you say things often enough, magic happens.
maybe that's what our,
I'll remember that.
maybe that should be our amendment to the
Over and over
budget.
again, like the tooth fairy.
We'll ask,
And we will
Representative
be-
Rogers to get an amendment for us for
We
full
will
days.
be entering negotiations in late September.
Okay, so we do need to vote on this since it is a change to the calendar, so does anybody want to make a motion to update the school calendar for?
So moved.
Moved by Teresa, do I have a second? Seconded by Joan, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that's 5-0. Okay, so the next two items, I think we can kind of roll up.
Well, we're actually dropping the drama festival.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
So the second one on here, we're dropping because they are not able to get the transportation. The New York out-of-state field trip, this was what we did vote. Preliminary was in the vote for both of them at our
Right.
last vote, so.
Right, and nothing has changed. We shouldn't have done this preliminarily, but, so it's the same information you had last meeting. When I said that, I didn't think it was complete. It was complete, so I'm asking for another vote.
So Dr. Thompson, I voted for it before and I will again, but at the last meeting I did raise a concern around the equity piece and such a short turnaround. And since that meeting, some emails have come in stating exactly that some students wanted to go and can't because they couldn't pay the full cost
Yep.
on such a short time frame. So I'm just really disappointed, and I just wish there was a way we could help support our students with field trips.
Yeah, well, and, that's, sometimes when you have 2 years to plan things out, this was not the case on this one. It was a short turnaround. I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of systems that are getting away from these kinds of trips for exactly that reason. So, which is a whole nother conversation, but there are very few 8th grade, long-term, overnight trips out of state for that exact reason. So that's another conversation.
Was just for my clarification, was the request that came through the emails discussed with the PTO at all? Or did that come up? I don't know if you saw that email that I... Was there, is it just too short notice
so the
for a
PTO,
fundraising effort?
Right, the PTO, and again, fundraising, I think for all PTOs this year has been a little bit of more of a challenge than it has been in the past. But the PTO has made a commitment at the middle school, my understanding is that they made a commitment to make sure the other things that go on, are, one of which is the Canopy Lake trip, that there would be no child not going to any of those trips. This trip is not necessarily included in that.
Because of the timeline.
Because of the
I was just clarifying what had been explored, and so thanks.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve fully this field trip?
This is the
So moved.
Out of state? Yeah, the New York City out of state, yeah. Second by Joan, all those in favor? Aye, so that passes 5-0. Okay, so skipping over the drama one and on to policy, there's policy subcommittee update, Ms. Sitting Dunn.
Yeah, we're meeting tomorrow, and I don't have the minutes from the last one up, but tomorrow there's quite an agenda, but we're going, Sorry, I just had it up in front of me. Here we go. Well, Dr. Taylor's going to talk about the updated SIP template. I think some things were added here that I didn't add, so if anybody wants to speak to that, then what we're going over, or if anybody has questions, I don't really have, these are really ongoing conversations that we're having around like the handbooks, which is an ongoing discussion. The school naming, I think we're talking about today. So these are conversations that are sort of going on that are ongoing. There's no firm updates at this point, in other words. But we are meeting tomorrow and looking at our long-term agenda too, so we can talk a little bit about what came up earlier in terms of how that funnels in to everything overall to make sure that's covered. Why do we have MASC updates on here? Do you know, Dave?
The March ones.
The March ones?
That long policy newsletter.
That long.
Yeah. But that kind of has to do with,
I'm gonna go through that.
yeah, like it's what Dr. Taylor's working on for the staff handbook. It's a lot of there. We know that there are some redundancies because of the work that this group has already done. So I don't have any big headlines there. Does anybody have any questions, or does Anne Marie or Dr. Thompson have any?
Yeah, I would say that the one thing that is coming to you from the last policy subcommittee meeting is the one-year improvement template.
Yeah.
So, which is number 3 on the agenda. So.
Yeah, and why don't we just skip to that, and then I can do the community engagement piece. Does that make sense, Anne Marie?
Yeah, we can take that first.
Because it's a little different.
Yeah, so we can skip over the community. Do you want to do the community engagement piece pretty, well, do you want to do the SIP and then the school naming thing and then do the community engagement?
Sure.
Sounds good. Okay, so the one-year school improvement template. Dr. Taylor, were you going to present that to us, or should we bring it up?
So what we've done is essentially create narrative around the priority areas that are matched to the strategic plan that the principals have already indicated in their current 2-year plan. In terms of like implementation and process, we would like the principals to attach this form to their current 2-year plan so that you have an opportunity to see what they propose to do and the progress to date. So we haven't changed much in terms of the demographic, expected populations, mobility rates, we've kept that the same. And then if you scroll down, keep going down, more, you'll see it's pretty much the same template. Priority area, indicate what it was in the goal, and just let us know your narrative. I think I put 200 words max so that we don't get dissertations.
Fair.
Nice.
Brief
Trying to
and
be helpful.
efficient.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep, I did 200 words max.
For each priority area. Yeah.
Yep.
That should be. That's doable.
So we'll get a thesis, not a dissertation.
Yeah. That looks good. I mean, we've seen it a couple times before, so I feel like.
Are there any questions on the one-year template? Comments, concerns?
No, it seems to make sense, follows a similar cadence to the 2-year. Did principals have a chance to look at this?
They did, and the one thing I do want to raise is that under the accountability measures, the measures that DESE is, well, actually, right, here we go. On page 5, I believe that is, the 2022 accountability report, the indicators are different. They're now looking specifically at subgroup and not aggregate score, ELA achievement, science, math, and growth. So what we initially had were composite scaled scores, and now what they do is this composite scaled score, but it's a score by subgroup. So we will need to change that template to match what's in the DESE reporting. Will they change it back? They might. But that's a change that I would like to propose so that the principals can easily, what they see on the form matches what's in DESE.
So this is what you're proposing, or it's different?
I'm proposing that we change this to match how it's displayed in DESI's system.
But this is not what's in the DESI system.
Correct. I didn't want to make any changes because it was submitted, with the deadline, in the last 2 days.
And then would that then also go in the 2-year plan?
Correct.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve this with the updated DESI categorization categories.
Yes. I second that.
I know how much you love Desi, so that was, it's a lot coming from you.
However I can.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that passes 5-0.
Do you also want a motion to change it in the 2-year plan?
Might as
Sure.
well.
So I'll make a motion to also change the DESI accountability report in the 2-year plan.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
I appreciate the efficiency.
Yes, so motion to change the 2-year SNP. With updated accountability report based on the DESI website?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so the 1 year. And the first one, it was Kate and then David, and the second one was Teresa.
The sound in here just kind of dissipates.
I feel like I want to break
It's
into
like
song and just like.
kind of I think it's hard to focus.
All right, so then we will move to the naming of the new middle school plan policy. So I know, David, you've been a big proponent of this, and you gave us your outline. The only reason I put myself on here as the presenter was because we did talk about it in the policy subcommittee, and we were not able to connect to get an updated timeline. So I know we had discussed, having you were going to send out an updated timeline. But of course, with budget and everything else that was going on, it just kind of got a little, we're getting crunched. In your packets, you have David's original draft for the naming timeline, and then also policy FF, which is naming of new facilities, which David also included in his email to us when he sent us the information. But it's in the packet just for a refresher. We did discuss it in the policy subcommittee and looking at the timing. One of the things that came out of that was, getting a final date on when the middle school building project would have to have this by, because there was a bit of disconnect over whether it was December, whether it was September, Dr. Thompson did email us this week that as long as we are not planning on changing the N with the Mustang, that it's actually February of 24 is when we would have to have the naming in by, which gives us a bit more breathing room to make sure that we can have the correct community engagement, because if you look at policy FF, it is one of the things on here, absolutely, and we would never try to push something like this through without having a lot of community engagement. I think that was one of the things that, David, I totally appreciated what you were trying to do by getting it in by a deadline we thought we had, and summer is not the best time to engage with the public because everyone's kind of gone away from school, but it was going to be really difficult to get the correct amount of community engagement. So this definitely gives us a bit more breathing room to plan out the process. So my suggestion is, I don't want to do it here just because I know I don't want this to be a working group for getting that, the timeline worked out. But my suggestion would be to have a couple people do it with you, David, or, I know this is your, you were driving this, so I definitely don't want to take that away from you, but coming up with a new timeline that does include, plenty of community engagement, and then just gives us more time into that,
Yes.
especially into the new school year. I think if we try to rush it and get things done by the end of this school year, just with everything that we have on the table and everything that's already going on, I think we need to start the process.
Yeah.
I don't think we can wait to start the process. The policy subcommittee doesn't think we can wait to start the process, but trying to get it was heroic what you were trying to cram in before the end of the school.
So I appreciate that, and I'll offer pushback. because I think one of the problems is my 3 years on this committee is we do this all the time, and I think we kick things down the road instead of dealing with them in the moment. I feel very strongly about this, having worked in schools for 11 years, 10 as a teacher, 1 now as an administrator, 2 years on this committee, is that I think what's really important when you work with the community is providing the option. One of the things that I think we have seen at this committee, I have seen in the 2 other districts I have worked in, is that you can communicate all you want, and there are still going to be people at the end of the process that say, well, I didn't know. And I think it's important that we publicize and do those things, but at the same time, as the policy says, whenever possible, the wishes of the community, including parents, guardians, and students, should be considered in naming school facilities. I think that the role of the public is very clear in this, that you solicit feedback and you solicit suggestions from them. We as the committee, it is our job to then narrow down and create the process to do that. I think the summer is a bad time. I still think that we could do this in 2 months, but if it's the will of the committee that we cannot, I still think that we should finish it in the fall. I don't think we should wait.
I'm not suggesting waiting until, February. I'm just saying it gives us a bit more breathing room. And I would point out the last clause of the policy where it says, following the submission, the school committee chair will specify a consideration period that allows for public comment. And that's the piece that I'm talking about, that we're going to need this, to have sufficient notice and not just, and in my opinion, not just putting it on the website like we do with our policies and saying, oh, nobody said anything, like we're done. Like that's going to cause a shitstorm I'm not ready for. So, so I am really looking at that last line and making sure that we have adequate time and venue for public comment, even if no one shows up. Because then it's,
right. And I think you do that, but the policy is also clear on, you reach out to PTOs, you provide a form, you give people the opportunity to provide feedback, and it also says in there, just to be clear, because I know sometimes, if we think about how institutions of higher learning sometimes name with the acceptance of donations, that does, people can offer money, but we don't need to select based on that. And I think, again, what's important there is it still leaves the onus on us. We ultimately are the ones that are choosing the name. We are giving feedback and we vote, but we allow for public comment. So to me, that sounds like you put together some process where it's open for a certain amount of time and you publicize it. People have the opportunity to do the things. You then, after that, hold the hearing where, I don't know, maybe before it, you offer feedback, or at the meeting you say, this is the list that we've now narrowed down, here's 10, give us your feedback, and then we take the top 2 from that and go from there.
One of the benefits of starting it now is you could run a contest through the schools, which would dramatically increase public awareness.
Well, there was also something that, as we did this, that I strongly consider. I have some colleagues that work in Westwood and what they did, and I think it's something that, Dave, I look at you for this, but would be something that would, I think, be cool for the town, and that is Westwood, again, their school committee created the 2 names, and then they gave it to the oldest elementary school kids that would then occupy that school to choose, and then the school committee adopts that recommendation. So, I don't know if that's something where, if I do my math right, it would be, help me out.
5th graders, it's our 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd.
So I would say your 4th and 5th graders get to choose that by the time they're there, they're 7th and 8th graders, that they, have ownership of that.
But the choices that they get are based on a couple cycles of community
Yes, that we
exchange.
take from the community and then we give to the students to ultimately.
That's cool.
So what I'm hearing from you guys is we can redo, I can bring it next meeting, but come back, update timelines, maybe push this to the fall. So maybe we start an open period of collecting names sometime in mid-May to the end of the year, and then do most of the work in September, October, and that's when we have the open forum to do that.
And does your outline have the stages, what stage one is of the open call, and then have we delineated what the steps are?
Yes.
Your outline pretty much does that, right?
Appendix A has a timeline.
We pull in public opinion, and then there's a winnowing process, and then is there then another round of public voting, like in a forum or something?
So how I envision it, based on my read of the policy, is that we solicit that feedback and we allow people to do that. So I think it's twofold. One, it explicitly states that we have to hold a community forum, and the second one is the ability for them to give names. So I think in that too, there's like a form that I made.
Okay.
That I think that would probably be what happens as we go into July, that we have an open period of maybe 4 to 6 weeks. When people can access it on the website, we make it available through PTOs and schools.
Yeah, okay.
You know, they do that. We collect all of those when we come back, or, you know, get back to it in late August, early September. We, you know, can look at those lists of names. You know, we either take all of them, or we, for, you know, I think as the policy is clear, our
The
power
top,
to decide.
Yeah.
You know, say, hey, we like these 10 names that we've solicited feedback from. Here's the open forum, you know, come talk to us about these names. And then from there, you open it to voting, whittle it down, you then give those to the kids, and
I do like Joan's suggestion though of like getting some of those names to start generating from the kids.
I think getting some of those names from the kids now, as we're starting to, like,
Right.
spring sports have already, so there's also the political factor. Spring sports have already started being affected by the curriculum being ripped up. So sending something out to the students to solicit names is a low lift, but it gets them excited and talking about it. It puts a positive light.
Or would you do it through like the school councils and have them kind of like submit as a school council what they've gathered from the body, or
Send something to the principals, asking them to just run a school naming contest in their classrooms until the end of the year.
yeah, history class. or
Yeah, a
something
history
like that.
class, submit forms here, whatever, and school council, or the student council.
Student council,
Yeah, so I was like, I'm not sure the school does, but.
No, I always
But
do
student council, right, or have student councils submit something, but this can be a relatively low lift, but I'm thinking like a flyer that gets sent home too, to people. It's like, hey, contribute. We raise awareness of and excitement at the same time that we're also starting to experience the disruption.
I like your marketing.
I think we need to be
I know
really,
we are. That's part of why I can't do anything anymore after school, because the Coakley is offline for soccer.
Wait, it's already offline for soccer?
Because the season extends.
But it's currently offline?
They just never started on it, right? 'Cause-
I think they're not starting there. It's an intentional choice so that they don't have the disrupt. You can't
3/4 of the way through.
You can't 3/4 of the way through move like
Right, I understand.
10 games. Yeah, so I think they have intentionally. Let me put it this way. I believe it has moved. I don't know that for a fact. I just know that I no longer have soccer practices at the Coakley.
Okay.
as I think about the process, I think we want to be really clear. Once you have your updated dates and stuff, in terms of defining it for the public, because I could anticipate some confusion happening. And they, you know, if we have cycles that are too similar, they might say, oh, I already did this. I already said what I wanted to be, or I already voted. So just that we make sure that the different
Right, I don't think it
stages.
should be a vote to start, like it
No,
should.
it's not.
It's not, no,
Per,
yeah, no,
per the
that's-
thing, it's a submission, and it literally, I mean, I think that's a
Yes.
good idea, and Dave, I would look to you and the elementary and middle school principal, but, you know, it specifically states includes school council, PTA, PTO. So I think that that's.
Yeah, as much as we could outline and clarify what the process is from the beginning and have a place for that list.
And then we winnow it down, and I love the idea of letting like the current fifth graders, the current fourth and fifth
So
graders.
what's really cool, and this would take some reach out from the town, but like what they did in Westwood is they talked to the town clerk and they brought in like the voting machines and like the kids voted. So it was like
that's really
I know
cool.
that's a huge heavy lift.
Oh, I know, but that's a really
like,
great civic engagement.
right?
Yeah.
Ooh, we could totally spend this. Anyway.
So it's something to think about. So what I'm
I
hearing,
mean, there is a fall town meeting.
so what I'm hearing is what you would like is me to, or you are giving me permission to update this further and come back to you on our next meeting with something, a timeline that is ready to be voted and put in place.
Do you think that it would be beneficial to have David come to a policy subcommittee meeting to present it first and
No.
then vet it out, or do you think just come straight to
Well, you
the?
can't have all three of you officially.
Well, if he's presenting as a,
I don't think that's necessary based on this conversation.
I just didn't want to waste time.
When is
in a
your
larger
next
meeting,
meeting?
We could like
So you
vet
guys
things
can
out
look at
first,
it.
that's all.
No,
Please
you
don't
can't-
say
you
tomorrow.
can't go
No,
before.
I can't.
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. Okay. We'll see.
Well, you can take my place.
No.
But also, I think, based on this conversation, I think you.
No, it's probably not, it's not necessary.
Okay.
It was just a
Good question.
spitballing. Yeah, so, yeah, if everybody else is okay with that, yeah, the next meeting.
Yeah, I would say just spell out kind of somewhat Joan and Kate and
Yeah.
Marie have been saying about other, that we can very clearly say this is the process, this is how it's gonna happen. Because then if we vote on it on May 3rd, we can get it on the website, Dr. Thompson, Dr. Taylor can start to get it out, and we have very consistent messaging from the
Yeah.
community.
Speaking of
I will say,
messaging.
my nerd came out a little bit when you start reading those policies. It's like, oh, that's like the history document analysis. I really like that. So. You gotta find joy in these things. You have to find joy in these things.
So this is a good segue into the engagement thing if you're ready. for
Yes,
this.
let's go.
Okay. So I sent you guys a really quick one sheet. I'm sorry for the tardiness of it, but it's very top level because this is just a new idea. So there's a lot sort of TBD in terms of what comes from the conversation and determining what direction it would take. So the idea is that there's a lot of, we have a goal as a school committee to improve community engagement. And we know that the district has goals around community engagement that are consistently a challenge because of the way that people's lives are, because of just the nature of the pace of life, et cetera. And so this is sort of based on the video content idea that I shared with you guys that I learned about at the MASC, or some of what was being done in Sudbury, some short form video content that they were using that I thought, oh, we could do that. We've got NCM, we could be doing, build on what NCM already does and maybe use some stickier, like creative avenues, use students and really get at some issues, but do it in a way that might be more memorable. And then as I was thinking about it and talking about it with people, I realized that there's really two or more than one, arm. It's not just about video, but it's about overall engagement. And so I'm proposing to form a working group with us and other stakeholders that would look at what these issues are and then have a bigger discussion about what kind of creative messaging avenues we could use to get at these issues. So for example, it might be around, a way to get at the behavior issues might be a student-led messaging video campaign or series or something like that. Or it could be something simple like really having the community understand what school committee really does, and you could use student interviewers and have a kid says the darndest thing by. These are, I'm not an ad exec, but using a little more of a creative approach so that people stop and in this TikTok era absorb information a little bit more. So I've had a conversation with Dr. Thompson and Jack Tolman about sort of just the nugget of idea, if it's okay if it makes sense to them to start having conversations with administrators and building this group, this sort of working group out to start ideating around what these messages might be. And so I'm hoping that you guys would support that and sort of vote to have it move forward.
So I'd like to propose tabling this conversation until we get to the goals discussion for the school committee.
Okay.
Because I'd like to fold those two conversations
Okay.
together because it's a new working group that you're proposing.
When are we doing that? Next?
In like 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes. It's in this meeting. I'm just saying, can we fold this conversation into our larger school committee goals?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
For sure.
Okay. I don't want to say, yes, we're going to do something, and then in our goals, not
Have it
in
be-
any way, shape, or form be reflected.
Yeah.
That's my favorite way.
Okay, so if everybody is okay with that, I mean, that seems reasonable, we can move that forward.
So we'll be able to talk about it, and if you have questions about that specifically, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so if you pause 5 minutes. Then the last thing, so if everyone's okay with that, the last thing we have is the legislative advocacy.
Yeah, so basically almost exactly the same thing that I read at our last meeting. So just as a reminder, Jody Smith and I have been working together on behalf of the school committee and the union. Last time at our last meeting, I read for you verbatim this funding letter that we wrote. I just added a couple of details at the end to highlight it so you can very clearly see what has been added in to kind of wrap up the letter at the end. But we would like, hopefully, the approval of the school committee tonight to send this to Representative Rogers and Senator Rush, and then the union has a board meeting tomorrow, so if the school committee approves it tonight, Jody will take it to her board tomorrow, and then we can sign it and get it sent. So I haven't heard any feedback from anybody at the last meeting or via email, but is there anything that has come up for anyone?
No, I appreciate the work, and I saw a couple of feedback around our responses, and I think it's really important, and so thank you both. And I would move to, unless there's other questions, I would move forward.
Does anyone else have any other questions? And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all's in favor? Aye. Thank
All
you.
right.
We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Okay, so I'll clean it up and I'll get it to you, Jody, so you have it for tomorrow. I'll do that at midnight.
You need to stay up and wait for the email.
No, that way when she wakes up, she has it. Okay, 12:01. But then at the next meeting, we'll have 2 more letters around the MCAS Thrive Act and then behavioral stuff that we're still working on. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, so moving on to the next item is talking about our goals. So school committee goals for the May of 23. So our last set of goals went through May of 23, right, up till.
Well, they went like May to March.
May to March, yeah, give ourselves a
election
little
cycle.
pause in between. So we need to look at putting together a new set of goals for this next cycle. I think, and we've had a lot of conversations about what should be in a goals document versus what shouldn't, what needs to be there, versus what doesn't. In my personal opinion, if it's something we have to do, it doesn't necessarily belong in a goal document, except for like one overarching, I will do everything that I have to as a school committee member to balance the budget and, review policy. So I think, that was one of the things we talked about when we had our MASC training with Dorothy, is just being, deliberate and not just putting things in there that we would have to do anyway. However, I know we're not going to come up with all of our goals tonight. I think that, we would start the conversation. I think we have it on the long-term agenda to vote on them, finalize them at our next meeting. However, I do feel like if the subcommittees aren't ready today to throw 3 goals into the document, then we're definitely not going to get it all completed tonight anyway. So I guess I was struggling to move forward with this specifically since we don't have specific goals written out already for us to have reviewed and vote on and such, and I don't want to turn it into a giant working group.
Yeah. Well, it kind of, yeah. I mean, in the past we did have a workshop. So
Right.
I guess my first question for everybody is how we set it up last year where we had, to your point, things we have to do anyway. But we had some priorities and then we had goals. So do people still want to have priorities, which helps streamline our subcommittee work, and then also our goals? And I linked to the current goals in the document that you have in front of you if anybody needs a refresher.
Priorities.
So we had our business priorities last year, we had the middle school building project priority, we had the subcommittee priorities of the budget and the policy, then we had what we were calling district support goals, and then we had our own professional development goals, and then we had engagement goals.
Yeah, it seems like the priorities overlaps with what Anne Marie was saying.
Yeah, the priorities are definitely things that we
That are
should be
obligated
doing
to
anyway.
So I'd like to recommend that we actually set goals that are not connected with things like middle school or our professional development, but instead our overarching goals. So community engagement would be an overarching goal, right? And then within that, we would talk about what we're going to do for those goals. So would we engage in professional development as a school committee around that goal? Is there something about the middle school that we would engage in around that goal? So I'd like to recommend that we highlight 3 goals and then slot the tasks and the priorities underneath those. And be really intentional about inclusive, what falls under those, and saying no to things that don't fall under them. So, and I'd like to propose community engagement as one of those, because that's something we've been working on for a long time, which is part of the reason why I asked to table the discussion for now.
Yeah, it keeps popping up with everything.
So then would we still keep, like, district support, professional development, engagement?
I don't
Would be
think
our
those
three.
are particularly helpful for us in terms of coordinating our efforts and our actions. We drive at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 things on here, but how many things are not on there that we've been driving at this year? A ton.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is we need I'd like to see us have some broader goal categories so that we can be really intentional about this year we're going to hit, let's say, community engagement, equity, and inclusion. I'm picking 3 random things, and I'm going to just use middle school because I can't think of another one right now. But community engagement, equity, inclusion, and middle school, right? And so then underneath that would be things like talking about 2-way communication, right? Talking about the working group for community engagement, talking about the work with PTOs and how do we engage them better. That all fits under that goal of community engagement. Equity and inclusion work, literally everything that we're doing in the strategic plan almost, it feels like, fits under that. It's the other goals.
We have budget stuff under that.
So Joan, you're saying, like, the way I'm hearing it is then that, like, underneath each goal, things will repetitively pop up, right?
I think so, yeah. And our priorities, we would have some things that would be separate from that, right? That things that we have to do, like Dr. Thompson's mid-year check would be that. But within his evaluation, we'd be specifically looking at things like community engagement, equity, inclusion, et cetera. So I'd like for us to think a little bit differently about how we do this, with the goal that when new things come across our plate, we can say, is this one of the 3 things? Does this fit under one of the 3 buckets? And if it doesn't, we say we need to defer this for a year. We need to defer it until next year.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm all for alignment, but Dave's goals are already set for the most part. I know there's a couple for the 2 years, so we can't add things now. And
That
some
was
of
just
the-
an example.
No, I know. I'm just thinking out loud. And like with the strategic planning process that's going to happen, and I hear what you're saying. I think I'm just struggling with like the process of it, but I do hear what you're saying.
Yeah, so all 3 of those things should be rowing in the same direction. The school committee goals should line up with the superintendent goals, which should line up with the strategic plan. So, you know, we have to do not the objectives, the indicators and stuff for the last year. Next year, we're going to need to do a big full year, you know, start up again, and that's right with my goals end. So, but I'm all for having 3 areas, not 5, 3 areas, and, you know, what are the important things that we're going to work on. Not everything, but the important things we're going to work on and do it well.
So is it, and I mean, you can make them broad enough. Is one of them maximizing budget efficiency or some other MBA words that allow us to kind of look at being operationally efficient within everything, right? So then that impacts Karen's area, that impacts Alex's area, you know, he's leaving us, that impacts your area. And so thinking about it from those ways, and then we can report out, these were the 3 things we set out to accomplish. Here's the various ways across the district that those things were put in place. And what it requires us to do, though, is to set bigger high-level goals first about what our priorities are and what's really important to us and what's really important to the district, and then bust that down into the task, which we've got here.
So to that end, Joan, and to Teresa's point, does it make sense to do this after strategic planning re-engages?
No, I think we should be guiding strategic planning.
Yeah.
So what would, what would 4 areas be? Community engagement, equity,
Well,
budget?
hold on, we already have 5 objectives in the strategic plan.
Mhm.
So we have.
3 too many.
We
Yes.
have, but you're not changing that in that. You're
No.
saying go down to 3 next cycle.
Yeah.
So we have investment and resource allocation. We have facilities and operations. We have innovative instruction and personalized learning. We have programs and pathways. And we have safe and supportive schools. So those are the 5 areas that we've already told all the principals their school improvement plans have to funnel up. But I don't know if, as a school committee, if we stay really clear on what is our role, which is why I sent some of the stuff from MASC that they updated out to everybody. We probably can touch on each of those a little bit, but I don't know if they really all, like programs and pathways, I think is more administrative than school committee. But then if you think about Dave's goals, which I don't have in front of me, but obviously you have like the communication and engagement rubric standard, there's some operational stuff, there's policy stuff, there's budget, so there's those 4 from Desi for him.
Yep. But those are his goals.
But we should be aligned with his goals.
We can't, but we have to drive the vision. What I'm talking about is driving the vision. It's not all ever gonna line up perfectly where Dave's goals are up, the strategic plan is up, and
Yeah,
we've got
not what we
it's never gonna happen. So some things may not be in alignment 100%. There are
Right.
some things that have nothing to do with us that Dave has to do, right?
But that shouldn't be our goals.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So those things, there's never gonna be 100% perfect alignment. But what our goals are these 3 broad overarching things that the school committee is working towards, and we
Okay.
struck the district towards.
So let's decide tonight then, what are those 3 areas?
Well, see, this is where a workshop's so valuable, and this is where, like, doing it with Dorothy is so valuable, because I hear what you're saying, but part of what got us to the format we used last year is we had the discussion many, many, many times about all the things we absolutely had to do. And we wanted to make sure we were on the same page and that everybody knew, okay, this is what we are asking our budget subcommittee to do. And this is what we're asking our policy subcommittee to do. So I still think we need to identify priorities that
Yes,
keep
but
us
after the
accountable.
goals. After we
Well,
identify.
I don't know, because there's some things that are non-negotiable that we have to do.
Right, but I don't think those belong in a goal document.
But that's why it's priorities and goals. We worked on this a lot.
Right, but I feel like the priorities, it's almost like a handbook, like where it's a separate
So you remember the
stream.
self-evaluation tool that we
Yeah.
did? All of this was guided by Dorothy. I'm not refuting like higher bucket goals, but everything that we've done came from somewhere.
Right, but when we had Dorothy come in and do the workshop, I remember her saying that there were too many goals and that a lot of these, since they were things we had to do anyway, shouldn't have been in a goal document, that we needed to be more deliberate with our goal setting, that it wasn't just things that we had to do anyway, set.
So let me ask you a
Under-
really hard question, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but how do we hold ourselves and each other accountable if we're not putting in a document, these are our priorities, this is what we're doing?
Well, I don't necessarily disagree with you that there needs to be some sort of a document of priorities. I think that, a priority list for the budget subcommittee, and having it spelled out, like maybe I don't want to say policy, God, no policy, but like that, this is what is expected, the expectations of a budget subcommittee, the expectations of a policy subcommittee. I guess I get what you're saying, like, but then within the goals, you would have, okay, well, this year we want to, as a policy subcommittee, get this done, and that fits under community engagement, or, as a policy subcommittee, we want to get this done, and that fits under equity, and I was trying to write it down for you.
Yeah,
Bridget.
I get what you're saying too, but there's also, I think we have to be really realistic of the work that all of us are doing. And if you put something on a goal document and we limit it to only 3 areas, and that suddenly becomes the goals that we're all accountable for, I'm not against that. But what if there's some of us who are already doing 20 of the priorities? That needs to be documented somewhere. We can't evaluate ourselves just on what I'm hearing.
So we're not saying the same, because I thought you started this by saying, we don't want to have every single thing that we do on this goal stuff.
I didn't say that.
Okay, somebody.
I said that.
You said it, okay.
I
I knew somebody said it, but
it's
I
not
think
done
there's a
goal
difference-
setting for 20-something years.
So there's a
and we
difference
don't do that.
between goals and things that we have to do. And things that we have to do are things that we have to do. It come hell or high water. Those are the things we had to do during COVID.
Right,
We need that list. That list absolutely needs to happen. But that has to be just the things that we need to do. Anything that deviates from that list in any way, shape, or form should fit under the 3 goals that we're talking about.
I agree with that. I'm just saying, and I'm struggling here, why is the format of what we currently have, where it was priorities and then goals, why can't we continue that format so it's all in one place? And we can still wordsmith the goals and do what you're saying, Joe, but I just feel really strongly we still have to vote on and agree what the priorities are. And, and the timeline of the work and who's doing it.
Have no problem with voting on priorities, have no problem with listing it out, have no problem with creating those timelines. I think maybe what I'm advocating for that's different from this is an additional document through which we evaluate non-essential tasks. It provides an inclusion and an exclusion parameter for us. So if our 3 goals, for the sake of argument, are things like, and these are the hard questions that we have to answer, in my opinion, of our goals is community engagement, equity and inclusion, and maximizing budget and operations. Okay, like those are our 3 goals. If something comes across our desk and it's related to, I gotta think of something that would be outside of the scope of those things, and it's related to teaching students to stand on their head for well-being, for student wellness.
Yeah.
We would say, how does that fit into these 3 goals? Because it's not an essential priority of what we have to do. How does that fit into the school committee's 3 goals? Is this something we're going to devote our time to? And if it doesn't fit into the 3 goals, we say, I'm sorry, that's not a priority for right now.
So that's a whole can of worms, and then we need a workshop session that's like 10 hours, and we need the school improvement plans from the principals, we need the strategic planning done, we need that equity audit. That is a whole can of worms.
We don't need the strategic planning document done, because just because we pass on it doesn't mean that the administration can't take it up. It's our goals that we're seeking to improve about what's under our, so we wouldn't, so for example, let's say somebody's offering us a grant for that, and we say that doesn't fit in our goals, so we're not going to create a policy around that, but that doesn't preclude Karen and Charisse from saying that's a grant that fits into our strategic plan, so we're going to go after it. It's about further dividing kind of the responsibilities and where we put our effort.
But if we would say no, that's not a grant that fits under our goals, and then they pursue it, we still have to approve it.
We would still approve it, but there would be no school committee effort going into creating a policy around that. There's no official consideration of it as a district. We would say, great, you've got that. Our goal is community engagement. How are we gonna get the community engaged around this? Or the grant comes across our desk and we say, one of our goals is community engagement. You want to pursue this grant. How are you going to engage the community about whether or not this is the right thing for our community? The goals help us kind of align where effort is going and helps us include and exclude things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that things can't happen. Does that make sense? So like our goal with the Standing on Their Heads grant would be, if it's community engagement and inclusion and maximizing budget and operations, it actually fits in very well. We would say to the administration, okay, our goal is community engagement. Lay us out the plan for how you're going to engage the community in this. Show us your two-way communication plan, because that's what's really important to us. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. How are you going to make sure that every single student can participate in the Standing on the Head challenge? And lastly, maximizing budget and operations. We have no money to provide to this because this is not part of. So if you're going to pursue a grant, we want to see the grant. We want to see 100%. It has to be 100% grant funded, and we want to know a plan for 2 years out how it's going to be funded when the grant ends. So that's how it fits into our goals, and it kind of eliminates, and it says we are not going to work on this because student wellness is not part of our goals for this year, our specific goals for this year. We're not going to create a policy around it. We're not going to invest the policy subcommittee's time around that because the policy subcommittee is working on, what were the 3 things I said? Community engagement, diversity, equity, inclusion, and maximizing budget and operations. Does that make sense? And then we would also still have our priorities document with all the work that we do with assignments and timelines and all those activities. It's just to kind of create some guiding force. I'm talking a lot inside this long game.
I think too, the way that I've always thought about goals is, outside of the work, it's outside of the work that you have to do. It's what you are aspiring to do. Like, so it's there, there should be reach goals on there that you're probably not going to hit. There's things on there that you're just. That's how I've always viewed goals in my personal career and everything else. It's just there are the things, and of course, we always just throw in a goal, like, yeah, that's what I do for my job, so I know I'm gonna hit that. you had your guineas. But like, it was always the things, like, what you're gonna aspire to do. And picking, I like the concept of picking, like, your overarching themes, like, okay, well, even if, in my opinion, with the amount of work we do on a normal basis, 3 is even lofty, but to say,
It serves as like guide rails. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, exactly. But like this year, we're going to devote all of our energy to community engagement, and we're going to get it right. And next year, like, I know we don't have the luxury of doing that because like everyone's moving at light speed, but it's really what you're going to focus your energy on. That is not already being focused on those like a million things that you.
Yeah, I agree, and I get it, and I just feel very strongly we also need to identify priorities. But for the goals, we also have a policy that says, based on law, the 5 areas we're responsible for.
Yep.
So we can't reinvent that wheel.
No, but that's exactly my point. That's by law. That doesn't need to go in a goal
But that's
document.
where your goal should, that is our authority. That is where our goal should be under, our 5 areas of responsibility.
So can I give an example, maybe a more concrete example? So middle school building committee, there are things we have to do, right? So those things are going to be aligned out, and we're going to do all of those things no matter what. If the community engagement as a goal is a good example of what David's proposing around naming, right? If one of our goals is community engagement, our additional responsibilities, in addition to everything else that we're doing for the middle school building committee that has to be done, would be to go, one of our goals is community engagement. We're gonna, how do we do this process, this middle school building committee process, with the maximum amount of community engagement that we can? If community engagement wasn't one of our goals, but instead maximizing efficiency or budget was, we would not put our energy into maximizing community engagement, but we would instead put our energy into the middle school building committee reps, value engineering the hell out of that building, right? Like, that's how the goals kind of affect the lens of what you're doing with your priorities.
And I think we definitely need a place where we can get specific with what steps.
Yes.
We're like, because when I'm thinking about, we keep talking about community engagement, and I'm thinking about this group, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to set some parameters for even this proposal, and like what next steps are, and things like that. So, but what the more overarching goals, back to what your approach, Joan, allows us to do is to pivot more easily, as opposed, like, if things come up, there's crisis or things are reprioritized, we can more easily pivot with a broader set of guideline goals than we can if we're beholden to a very prescribed, with goals being too granular.
But just as a reminder, that's what we're told to do. And if you do any training with MASC, they're supposed to be SMART goals, specific, measurable, the whole acronym. They're not supposed to be broad. They're not. That's not what we've been told to do.
That's not what I heard in the workshop around.
I mean, maybe are we creating
We haven't had a
just
goal workship
two
with us
things?
lately. When did
I
we
think
have a
that
goal
we
workshop?
do need a workshop.
They did tell us.
That was an evaluation workshop. We did not sit through as this current configuration of the committee in a goal workshop.
It seems like we might need to, just because we all have different like approaches.
No, we definitely did talk about it.
No, on a quick conversation, but I have sat through so many specifically goal workshops with MASC in 6 years, and what you guys are talking about is not what we've been told to do.
SMART goals are underneath these larger goals. They're the priorities and the tasks, and I'm not saying we don't do that. I'm saying we first set the big buckets, and then within that we create those SMART goals. But what creating big buckets does is it doesn't have you having SMART goals in multiple different areas. It's like, it's the approach of spreading across of having SMART goals across 25 categories and making small progress in each one of those categories, instead of having 10 SMART goals in 3 categories to make deeper progress.
So I think the way we differently think about the how this is going to get done is getting in the way of our why, and I think we just have a very different how is this going to be framed, and we can figure that out. So to go back to the why, like what are people saying are the 3 big whys, if that's how we want to talk about it? What are the 3 big whys that then we can figure out the process and the details under? So community engagement seems to be one we all agree, right? What else are we all thinking?
Equity, diversity.
I mean, equity and
Including, I just paid a whole bunch of money for that audit, so we should, think about implementing the recommendations.
I mean, I feel very strongly with everything going on, like student and staff wellness has to be.
I'm sorry.
I feel very strongly with everything going on that student and staff wellness have to be one.
So I think this is what we do, we generate a list, and then we think about it, and come back and talk about it. So student wellness, staff wellness.
I think
we
you
have to
can
talk
like,
about it, but, oh, sorry, I can't.
I know, this place is like very weird sound situation.
never in the gymatorium again.
Yeah, we need to take some time with this. I feel like community culture could encompass engagement and wellness. So if we thought about it, if we pulled up a little bit and we thought about, how is morale, how is involvement with parents, how is, there's a big umbrella there.
Yes, but I think to your point, some of that is building based, right? We can help set policy and make decisions around that. But
I think we have to talk about maximizing efficiency in terms of budgets and operations, just given our current, that would be another one I would put on the list for consideration.
I mean, framing it in terms of why, of course, makes you think, of student achievement, but that is a terminology that I think doesn't necessarily get at like, student growth might be more like appropriate for measuring things as of late, instead of achievement seems very loaded.
And we can create these as SMART goals, right? Like during this fiscal year or during this academic year, we will increase community engagement by 50%. Right? It is possible to set big, broad SMART goals. Sorry, I took I was supposed to be brainstorming topics. Student wellness. Staff and the recruiting staff, qualified staff. Like it's not a secret that HR. Everybody is, HR. That's the big, HR. That's the big.
What do you mean by HR? Because technically we don't oversee it.
Everything related to anything connected to human resources. So benefits, recruiting, pipeline into the profession, holding on to teachers. I'm sorry, retention.
Well, some of this is already in the strategic. This is where I'm confused because some of this is already in the strategic plan.
It's about where are we as a school committee going to focus for the year. If it's on HR and not on student wellness, that gives us a different lens on different things.
We need a workshop. And you need not to be fulfilled.
But I want to push back. I don't think we need a workshop.
Yeah, we do.
Because I think that we've done that. And there's enough experience on this board to be able to put something together in not a 2-hour meeting. Because as you said, we go and the conversations are good, but then ultimately the step is we have to then narrow it down and shape it. So that would be my thing. My wheels are turning, so.
What do you mean your wheels are turning?
Just, I'm hearing what you guys are saying,
Oh, so like you're saying,
David is one who processes through.
take notes here and have
Yes.
follow up with
I have a working draft.
Synchronized.
That I'd like to share with you guys.
But we can't talk about this outside of the posted meeting.
But you could have a ad hoc subcommittee work on something to share with the whole committee.
Couldn't we we have people work on things and bring it back?
I guess the first question is do we want to work on 3 overarching areas? It's a process question, right? Do we want to work on 3 overarching areas and identify those? Or do we want to identify, that's where I'm hearing whether or not what we need consensus on. I don't know what I'm hearing, so I'll toss that back to the committee.
I think a reason to have a workshop is that if we're changing the format from what we've done, and all of us have different brain approaches, like our brains work differently, and so it's just this conversation seems inefficient because it's hard for people to get on the same page about it, and that's the only reason I can think. I mean, it could take longer, we could do it, but I feel like it's gonna take a little bit longer to really understand, whereas a objective facilitator might be like, okay, here's what you guys are doing, this is the question, that could be helpful.
So David is typing up a draft of what he's hearing from us. Do we want to review that?
Sure.
And then make a decision as to whether or not we need a workshop?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
We can ask for a workshop via email, right? That doesn't violate. Yeah, so we could review what David's typing up and either say, yes, I'm ready to discuss this at the next meeting, please put it on the agenda, or no, I think we need a workshop to discuss the process.
Yeah.
Not things that are on it, but the process. Yeah, I agree with that, because I think we had, like, the goals weren't bad last year, but I feel like I heard different things when we were talking about, like, when even though it was a short conversation, but with Dorothy, and just, so the process is definitely something that,
yeah,
I think.
And we want to get to a sustainable work level and role in terms of not just us, but the committee in the long term, right? Like when it's not us. And so we want to be, we've had this conversation about transitioning from the reactive and the crisis oriented to.
Well, and I think I want us to continue to do goals. I know that was one of the things that Dorothy said is not every school committee does goals. There's lots that don't. And it's, and it's commendable to do them, but I don't want to make it such a burden and such an onus.
Right.
Like future committees are like, forget this, we're not going to do goals. Right. We have too much that goes on.
Right.
Anyway, so trying to get it to fit and actually help us to drive things forward rather than just like, it's a checkbox. Yeah. And just, yeah. So I like the idea of trying to get, of thinking about the process a little bit more. Looking at what David has, and then if we agree we need a workshop, then we can schedule something.
We can't do all the things.
No. I mean, and that was kind of, I think too, I can reach out to Dorothy too and get some advice on, the goals, and just, because it was a quick conversation, so maybe there's, I know there's a lot of training and workshops and stuff like that, but I ain't got time for that right now. We have goals coming up. So, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to just, send her our goal document, because I thought she'd seen our goal document.
Yeah,
but,
She had.
Yes.
Right.
But we also, again, had the priorities and the goals, and part of the reason we had the priorities was to hold us accountable, and to be able to have one document, check in on it.
Right.
And then also we had designed this a year ago as a way of helping the community understand what the school committee does as well.
Right. Completely understand that piece of it. I feel like I almost want to send it to her again and be like, I know you said some things about this and I just feel like we might have heard different things. Unless anybody objects to checking in with her, with our older one, and just being like, hey, could you please give me some feedback on this, like formally in an email, not just like the conversation that we had. Mm-hmm. Does that work for everybody so far, though? Just like have David, look at David's draft and, okay. I don't want to belabor this too much longer because we just have a few other things. Specifically executive session, but okay. Anything else on that before I move on? Perfect. Okay, so the last thing on here is around discussing so at least the summer meetings. I know we originally had said the entire next school year's meetings, and David has given us the draft of the meetings for next year, but at the time I did not have it, so I wanted to especially just make sure we got the summer meetings started to be scheduled, since we do want to start putting things on the long-term agenda for those meetings. So I sent out a doodle. I heard from almost everybody.
Just call me out. We're in public. Call me out.
I was trying to be tactful. So originally the link in your packet was to the doodle poll, but since I had the data, I pulled it out and put the doodle in there. So there are, oh, thank God.
So I didn't extend the thing, I realized, I was like, why is she only asking for a couple of dates in July? I didn't extend it all the way over, I just added my availability.
I literally looked at it and I was like, are you serious?
No, I just added my availability.
No, I love it, thank you.
I'm gonna turn them all to green, hang on a minute. I got you, Joan, don't worry.
Thank you.
I literally, when I first saw it, I was like, I think maybe she was meant to go back in and finish it.
No, I didn't click the button to make
go
it expand.
further. I know that is the one thing with Doodle, it doesn't like show you the, I wanted it to just show me days and like checkbox them. And so I think next time I would just do it in Google Forms, because that would have been way easier. As we've said before, a few emails have gone around about this. We don't have to do this by a meeting, but I just feel like if we set these dates and vote on them tonight, that would be the best place we can be at the moment. And I did say we had one meeting last summer, but that really was we just could not find a time where even half of us were available. But it was, especially as a new chair coming into it, like it wasn't good. Waiting until August, in my opinion, was like way too long, and there was things that just fell off. People just were like, "Oh, no meeting until August," and just went, poof, into the ether. And there was a lot of stuff that actually ended up creeping up on us when August came, and it was ugly. Well, for me anyway. So I am seeing. When I was looking at July, there does appear to be a couple of dates in July, not Wednesdays, and I guess that's completely fine. But I think the one that most everybody, and of course if David says he can't do this day, then I guess we end up with none. But Monday the 17th, Teresa said she could flex what she has going on that day, and that would be all of us.
If we can move the time on the 18th, I can.
You could flex as well?
Yep.
So David, would you be available on July 18th, Tuesday, July 18th?
Well, hold on, because did you check with MCM?
Nope. Oh, it's a Tuesday.
I was told
Stupid
previously,
board.
I was previously told not to do school committee on Tuesdays. I don't know if that's still true or not.
I think we should stick to that. Here's my question. I think that July is important for everyone that works in schools, including the administrators. So I'd ask, what do you guys need? Because if we need to do 2, I think it's nice to have that time off in July to not have to think about things.
Yeah.
I think that the feedback I'm hearing is maybe we do 2 in August. I recall we did one early in August, around I think like 2, 3, something like that. And then we did one sort of at the end. So instead of every other week, it went like 1, 4, just right before school. So I would bump to.
August looks trickier for us. to do
August is
things.
definitely tricky.
What do you mean?
Well, there's a lot of meetings that not everybody can do. I think, David, maybe your July off is some of our August off in our lives.
Everybody can do the 2nd of August.
Well, but
Yeah,
Dave and
the first is a Monday, the 31st of July. That will be a July meeting where everybody can now do that. You've got Wednesday, the 2nd. Everybody seems to be able to do that one.
Mm-hmm.
So do it early August and a late August.
Wait, what do you say?
That would be right next to each other in August.
No, but if you chose either Monday the 31st, Wednesday the 2nd, so that's meeting 1, and then you look back at like the Wednesday the 30th, I've got a needs be.
I can probably do it.
So that would be the other one. That
You
could-
can't show us what's behind you though, because it's gonna be way nicer than. Well, I assume you won't be home.
I don't know, and it's not on my calendar, and in my head, I don't think I'm gonna be anywhere. I think I'll be home, that's what I'm saying, I don't know, but I think so, I think I can do it.
But even though I selected these, it was with the, no, I can flex certain aspects of my life, but I wasn't intending on 2 August meetings. So
But this gets into the debate, because right, we get into this point where it's like, well, we need more meetings.
Yeah.
So we have to learn to operate within the time that we have. And this is something that all of you have expressed to me within the course of the past year and a half. We gotta learn to live within our means. So, it's
Right,
the will
but
of the committee. I would advocate for 2 in August. That's when school starts gearing back up and we get into the 2 meetings a month. And November is one of the meetings where we only have 1. So I get we're just picking summer, we reorganize in June, but we need to make the decision of, do you want one in July and one in August, or do you want to do 2 in August?
I'm saying 1 in July, 1 in August.
As like I said, it just last year, not having one in July as a new chair was a detriment.
Okay.
There was a lot that
Okay, so
sprung
then,
up.
so looking at July, you've got July 31st, which is a Monday, and you've got Monday the 17th.
We're doing Monday?
Is the next best date.
And possibly.
What?
Tuesday is Board of Select people.
Well, maybe, it might be.
Maybe, but then again, I mean, if we're doing a remote, we can record it, and I can send the recording to.
Yeah, this would all be remote, like this would
Right.
not.
So it wouldn't be
Yeah,
a
that's
live
So it could be
presentation.
Tuesday.
Then let's
But-
do July 12th.
I cannot do July 12th.
Why'd you just pick one?
Yeah, there's like 3 people that can't do
Because
this.
this is the other thing, is
Why-
that,
if you're out of
like,
town, we don't
when's
have
it,
to
no,
do it,
but
I
like,
feel
when's it, right? Part of schools and part of what we do, or it's a calendar that's built around, you're asking to move days, NCM usually records these things. It's like,
Are you gonna be out of
just,
town on
just pick 2 days and
the
then we'll go
18th?
from there. Just pick 2 days and go from there.
What do you mean? Yeah. I'll be, based on this poll, if you want to get more people, the 17th or 18th is better, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so
What day did you say?
Monday the 17th of July or Tuesday the 18th of July.
I think Tuesday, we just do it remotely, and we record it. We have the ability to record it with
Yep.
Google.
Mhm.
If that is, of course, that is the end.
Yeah, that's if,
But with a remote meeting, you have to provide a live access under open meeting.
We would be live if you get a link.
So we're gonna have people join via our link, which is
I
not,
think anyone's gonna join.
no, I'm just saying, we have policies and we have the law.
Well, how about, actually, so let,
Well, yeah, they
I think we
can
can
because of
tentatively,
COVID, right?
I think that's an option. I think we can tentatively pick the 18th. I can check with NCM, because if it's remote and they don't actually have to be there, but they would be running live the other. But we just need it recorded. No, it has to be. Oh, you're killing me.
right, but they can, but they've got more than one channel. Yeah. So, all right, so let's put in for Tuesday the 18th with a backup of Monday the 17th if they can't record it, okay? Pretty good?
Tuesday, July 17th.
Tuesday the July,
18th. I mean, 18th.
yeah, and then the 17th is a
Seven.
backup. All right, and then, do you want to do Wednesday the 2nd of August?
It looks like we all said yes.
Well, does that give you whatever you need, like with the rest of August then, before we come back?
I think it's worse, because when we go to, when school starts, that's when we should start up, and that's when things come up.
Yeah.
All right, let's do 2 meetings in July and 2 meetings in August. That sounds like a good idea.
Stop it.
Wait, I'm gonna be sick.
Yeah.
One
I
day
mean,
in July,
you could
one
do,
day in August,
I mean,
Tuesdays
who's,
So like August 22nd, 23rd, does that work for most people?
No, I am on vacation that week.
it does, Joan does not say yes there, but yes.
I'm on vacation. I'm unavailable on the 21st of August. Is that the date we're discussing?
Yeah.
I am unavailable. As is David. And that is coincidence, trust me.
We don't all have to be there,
Yeah.
so just pick the one that the most of us, that gives us.
Do the,
I mean, we weren't all there for this past year.
right. You want to do Wednesday the 23rd?
Why are you, oh, yeah. Gotcha.
8:23.
Fine, do that.
Wait, did you say you planned a meeting or?
I'm away that week.
But that leaves only 3 of us. We've never planned a meeting with only 3.
Okay?
What about
So-
the 10th?
So then, you know, again, the next best day is, you've got,
That whole week, David, just so, because I don't have you on here, I'm just trying to visualize it in my head.
yep.
What about August 10th? Anne Marie can't come, but Can you do
I
that?
can make it, I could make it work.
Give the days and I'll.
If it's remote, I
Well, we have
can,
to
if it's
make sure
remote, I
that
can do
it's-
it.
The 9th or the 10th? The 10th is a Thursday.
The 10th.
Pick the days and I'll.
10th you can do it? Okay, so 8/10 is the next one. 8/10.
7.
7.
I can't do that, so no budget.
You can't on August 10th?
I'm on vacation that week.
Okay. I'll just make up the numbers, don't you worry.
I will not let him do that.
You just made me fall
I can do
on
that.
my cracker.
She's better at it, but I can do that, just for the record.
I will not let him touch your sweatshirt.
He almost died.
What's next?
So Tuesday the 17th. Let's see. Remote.
So then, we can work offline on the rest of the school year, but that was the most pressing one, to be able to add some stuff to the long-term agenda. Anything else before we move on? Okay, so that brings us to consent agenda.
I'm not on the right thing. Hang on a minute.
What's that?
Can you read me the date? Thank you.
What is it, July 18th then?
Okay, so our one donation this week is the Women's Community Committee, a $100 gift card for the LEAD program.
Motion to accept. A motion to accept.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Okay, so that brings us to the school committee agenda. I'll start on the side, Joan,
I have no agenda this evening.
David,
First, I wanted to say welcome back and congratulations to our incumbents who have earned another 3-year term. I'm excited with working with you. And then I just wanted to say a big thanks to the Callahan community and staff for our gifts and candy and our hospitality. So thank you.
Kate.
Yes, I'll second the thank you for this great fidget toy. And I wanted to just give a shout out to Miss Lawrence and Miss Bedard and the rest of the music program. I was late today because I went to the honors band performance that my 4th grade son performed in. He played bells and he kept throwing up his mallets like a goofball. So anyway, all that hard work really pays off. I know that it's just really exciting to see those kids get excited on performance night and come together. I think they said there was like 136 kids that performed, and there was a choir and an orchestra and a band, and it was really special. It was just great to see our music program and those kids get to show off their hard work. So kudos.
Teresa.
Glad to be back. Thank you to the voters. A lot of work ahead in the next 3 years, but I am honored and happy to do it. And then just I hope everybody has a good April vacation next week.
I also am glad to be back. Thank you very much to everybody who voted, and wish my first meeting back wasn't a 3-hour marathon, but that is the nature of the work. But yeah, just thank you to everybody and for your support, and looking forward to the next 3 years of driving everything forward. Okay, that brings us to the end of our meeting. Well, sort of. We need to enter into executive session. We will only reconvene for the purpose of adjournment. We will have our next meeting will be May 3rd, which will be back at the Savage Center. And I will, at this time, entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Moved by Teresa, seconded by Joan. I have to poll individually. Joan?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Teresa? And I'm a yes as well. So that we will go into executive session. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and have a great night.